Welcome to the Survival Horror Ambience channel. If you like horror and horror stories, subscribe and hit the like button. Tell me in the comments what types of horror stories and movies you enjoy. Now to the stories. Oh, and happy nightmares. Chapter 1. The Mundane Routine. In the bustling hallways of Ridgemore High School, Dex navigated through the throngs of students, his gaze fixed on the floor as if searching for an escape route from the relentless teasing that accompanied him at every turn. He could hear the whispers and snickers following him like a shadow, a constant reminder of his outsider status among his peers. As he rounded a corner, Dex felt a familiar hand clap him on the back, causing him to startle slightly before recognizing the source. It was Cliff, a classmate known for his easygoing demeanor and penchant for mischief. "Hey, Dex, you look like you've seen a ghost," Cliff exclaimed, a playful grin spreading across his face. Dex managed a weak smile in response, grateful for the brief reprieve from the taunts that usually assailed him. "Just another day in paradise," he muttered half-heartedly. Cliff chuckled, falling into step beside Dex as they made their way to their next class. "So did you hear about the new Resident Evil game that just dropped? The graphics are insane, man. And don't even get me started on the gunplay." Despite himself, Dex couldn't help but feel a flicker of interest at Cliff's enthusiasm. He had always been a fan of video games, finding solace in the immersive worlds they offered, even if they were often dismissed as mere escapism by his peers. "Yeah, I heard about it," Dex replied, his tone cautious yet intrigued. "Sounds pretty cool." Cliff grinned, nudging Dex playfully. "You should come over to my place after school, man. We can marathon the game together. It'll be epic." Dex hesitated, torn between the prospect of spending time with a friend and his commitments to his mentor program at the hospital. "I appreciate the offer, but I can't. I've got my mentor class at the hospital today." Cliff nodded understandingly, his expression sympathetic. "No worries, man. Maybe next time." As they reached their classroom, Dex couldn't shake the feeling of isolation that lingered within him, a constant reminder of the gaping divide between himself and his classmates. Little did he know, however, that the mundane routine of high school life was about to be shattered by forces far beyond their control. And as Dex settled into his seat, he couldn't shake the sense of unease that gnawed at the edges of his consciousness, a premonition of the horrors that awaited them all. Chapter 2. The Mentor Program. As the final bell rang, signaling the end of another monotonous school day, Dex gathered his belongings and made his way through the crowded halls toward the exit. Cliff waved to him from across the corridor, but Dex barely registered the gesture as his mind was preoccupied with thoughts of his upcoming mentor session at the hospital. Exiting the school, Dex turned onto the quiet streets of Sleepy Valley Wood, the sun hanging low in the sky casting long shadows. As he walked, lost in thought, he nearly collided with another student hurrying in the opposite direction. "Whoa, watch it!" the girl exclaimed, her voice sharp with irritation. Dex stumbled back, apologizing profusely as he recognized the girl before him. It was Scarlett, a classmate known for her fiery personality and outspoken nature. "Sorry, Scarlett, I didn't see you there," Dex said, his cheeks flushing with embarrassment. Scarlett rolled her eyes, but there was a hint of amusement in her gaze. "Typical Dex, always lost in your little world. What's got you so distracted?" Dex hesitated, unsure how much to divulge to Scarlett, but he knew she wouldn't judge him like the others. "Just heading to the hospital for my mentor session with Dr. Reynolds." Scarlett's eyes lit up with interest. "Ah, the hospital. Working on any exciting experiments today?" Dex shrugged, trying to downplay his excitement. "Just the usual blood samples and analysis. Nothing too thrilling." Scarlett grinned, her playful demeanor putting Dex at ease. "Well, don't let me keep you. Wouldn't want to be late for your big moment in the lab." With a final wave, Dex continued on his way to the hospital, feeling a sense of gratitude for Scarlett's unexpected kindness. She may tease him relentlessly at times, but deep down, Dex knew she had a good heart. Arriving at the hospital, Dex made his way to the designated meeting spot for the mentor program. A middle-aged nurse greeted him with a warm smile, leading him through the labyrinthine corridors toward the lab where his mentor awaited. Entering the lab, Dex was met with the sight of rows upon rows of vials and test tubes, each containing a sample of blood waiting to be analyzed. His mentor, Dr. Reynolds, a stern yet kind-hearted man, stood at the center of the room, engrossed in his work. "Ah, Dex, right on time as always," Dr. Reynolds greeted him, setting down his microscope to offer a handshake. Dex returned the gesture, a sense of familiarity washing over him in the presence of his mentor. "Good to see you, Dr. Reynolds. What are we working on today?" Dr. Reynolds motioned for Dex to take a seat at the nearby workstation, where a microscope and various tools awaited him. "Today we'll be examining samples from our latest batch of patients. I suspect we may have a new strain of influenza circulating in the community." Dex nodded, his interest piqued by the prospect of a new challenge. He donned a pair of gloves and set to work alongside Dr. Reynolds, carefully analyzing each sample under the microscope. As the hours passed, Dex lost himself in the rhythm of the work, his mind focused solely on the task at hand. It was a welcome distraction from the taunts and jeers of his classmates, a reminder that he had a place in the world beyond the confines of high school. Eventually, the mentor session drew to a close, and Dex bid farewell to Dr. Reynolds, grateful for the opportunity to immerse himself in his passion for biology. Exiting the hospital, he felt a renewed sense of purpose, determined to prove himself in the face of adversity. However, as he made his way home, Dex spotted Scarlett sitting on a bench outside the hospital, her eyes red and swollen with tears. Concerned, he rushed over to her side. "Scarlett, what's wrong?" Dex asked, his heart sinking at the sight of her distress. Between sobs, Scarlett managed to choke out an explanation. Her father had been admitted to the hospital with a severe illness, the same influenza strain that Dr. Reynolds had mentioned earlier. Dex's heart went out to Scarlett, and without hesitation, he took her hand and offered her words of comfort. Instead of heading home, he made his way back to the lab, determined to find out what was happening with Scarlett's father's blood results. Dr. Reynolds was taken aback by Dex's sudden return, but upon hearing Scarlett's story, he agreed to let Dex assist him in analyzing the samples. Together, they worked tirelessly into the night, their shared determination driving them forward. Chapter 3: The Discovery. As Dex and Dr. Reynolds delved deeper into the analysis of the blood samples, their initial suspicions were confirmed. A parasitic organism, previously unseen, writhed within the crimson fluid, its presence ominous and unsettling. Dr. Reynolds furrowed his brow, his mind racing as he racked his memory for any existing treatments that could combat such a formidable foe. After a moment of contemplation, he exclaimed, "Dex, I believe I have an idea. There's a common anti-parasitic blood treatment that might just do the trick." Dex nodded eagerly, his eyes alight with determination. "What is it? How does it work?" Dr. Reynolds explained, "The treatment involves administering a combination of anti-parasitic drugs, typically used to combat infections like malaria or toxoplasmosis. When introduced into the bloodstream, these drugs agitate the parasites, causing them to perish." Excitement surged through Dex as he realized the potential implications of their discovery. "So if we can administer this treatment to the infected patients, we might be able to stop the outbreak in its tracks." Dr. Reynolds nodded, his expression grim yet resolute. "Exactly, but time is of the essence. We need to act quickly before the situation escalates further." With a sense of urgency, Dex and Dr. Reynolds sprang into action, preparing the necessary treatment and mobilizing the hospital staff to assist in the effort. But even as they worked tirelessly to contain the outbreak, chaos erupted throughout the hospital. Infected patients, driven mad by the parasite's influence, descended into a frenzy, lashing out at anyone in their path. Nurses and doctors struggled to maintain order as the situation spiraled out of control. Dex and Dr. Reynolds moved through the chaos, administering the treatment to as many patients as they could reach. With each injection, they could see the parasites writhing in agony, their grip on the victims loosening with each passing moment. But despite their efforts, the outbreak showed no signs of abating. The infected patients grew more violent and unpredictable, their numbers swelling with each passing minute. As Dex surveyed the chaos unfolding around him, a sense of despair threatened to overwhelm him. But then he felt a hand on his shoulder and he turned to see Scarlett standing beside him, her eyes shining with determination. "We can't give up," she said, her voice steady despite the chaos raging around them. We have to keep fighting no matter what. Chapter 4. Escape and Revelation. With Scarlett's unwavering support, Dex and Dr. Reynolds persisted in their efforts to administer the anti-parasitic treatment to the infected patients. Despite the chaos and danger surrounding them, they remained resolute in their mission to save lives. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, they managed to reach Scarlett's father, who lay pale and weak in a hospital bed, ravaged by the effects of the parasitic infection. Working quickly and efficiently, Dex and Dr. Reynolds administered the treatment, watching anxiously as Scarlett's father's condition began to stabilize. Relief washed over Dex as he saw the color return to Scarlett's father's cheeks, a glimmer of hope amidst the darkness that had engulfed the hospital. With Scarlett by his side, Dex felt a renewed sense of purpose, fueled by the knowledge that they had succeeded in saving a life. As they made their way through the chaos-ridden corridors of the hospital, Dex's thoughts turned to his friends, Cliff and Scarlett. He knew he had to find a way to contact Cliff, to let him know what was happening and ensure their safety. Pulling out his phone, Dex dialed Cliff's number, his fingers trembling with anticipation. After a few rings, Cliff picked up, his voice filled with concern. "Dex, what's going on? I've been trying to reach you." "Cliff, listen, there's been an outbreak at the hospital," Dex said, his words rushed and urgent. "It's some kind of parasitic infection, but Dr. Reynolds and I have managed to find a treatment. We need to get out of here before things get any worse." There was a moment of silence on the other end of the line before Cliff responded, his tone laced with skepticism. "An outbreak? What kind of joke is this, Dex? Are we talking infected zombies or the Walking Dead?" Dex's heart sank at Cliff's dismissive tone, frustration bubbling up within him. "This is no joke, Cliff. I'm serious. People are in danger, and we need to act fast." There was a pause as Cliff processed Dex's words, the gravity of the situation finally sinking in. "I'm sorry, Dex, I didn't realize. I'll be there as soon as I can. Hang tight." With Cliff's reassurance ringing in his ears, Dex and Scarlett navigated their way through the chaos of the hospital, dodging infected patients and panicked hospital staff as they made their escape. Finally, they burst through the hospital doors into the cool night air, their hearts pounding with adrenaline and relief. As they made their way to safety, Dex couldn't help but feel a sense of pride in what they had accomplished together. But even as they left the hospital behind, Dex knew that their battle was far from over. The revelation of the parasitic outbreak was just the beginning, and he and his friends would need to stay vigilant if they were to survive the horrors that lay ahead. And as they disappeared into the darkness of the night, Dex couldn't shake the feeling that their ordeal was far from over. Chapter 5. Streets of Chaos. As Dex and Scarlett emerged from the hospital into the chaos-filled streets of Sleepy Valley Wood, they were met with a scene straight out of their worst nightmares. The once peaceful town had descended into madness, with infected individuals attacking unsuspecting bystanders with savage ferocity. The air was thick with screams of terror and the stench of blood as Dex and Scarlett fought their way through the throngs of panicked people. Dex's heart raced with fear as he narrowly avoided being grabbed by an infected assailant, his instincts kicking in as he fought to protect himself and Scarlett. But just as Dex thought they might be overwhelmed by the sheer numbers of infected, Scarlett came to his rescue, her bravery shining through as she dispatched their attacker with swift precision. Dex watched in awe as she fought with fierce determination, her loyalty unwavering even in the face of unimaginable horror. However, their relief was short-lived as they witnessed Dr. Reynolds being cornered by a group of infected individuals. Dex's blood ran cold as he watched in horror as Dr. Reynolds valiantly fought back against his attackers, but he was outnumbered and overwhelmed. The sight of Dr. Reynolds being viciously attacked was both glorious and horrifying. The brutality of the scene seared itself into Dex's mind forever. He knew that they had to act fast if they were to save him, but the chaos of the streets made it nearly impossible to reach him. Just as Dex feared they might be too late, a familiar voice called out to them from the chaos. "Dex, Scarlett, get in quick." Turning towards the source of the voice, Dex's heart leaped with relief as he saw Cliff's car speeding towards them, its headlights cutting through the darkness like a beacon of hope. With a renewed sense of determination, Dex and Scarlett sprinted towards the car, diving into the safety of the back seat just as Cliff slammed on the gas, narrowly avoiding a group of infected attackers. As they sped away from the chaos of the streets, Dex couldn't help but feel a surge of gratitude towards Cliff for coming to their rescue. "Thanks for saving us, Cliff. We owe you one." Cliff flashed them a grin, his trademark sense of humor shining through even in the midst of danger. "Hey, what are friends for? Besides, I always thought the infected were way cornier than the undead." Dex chuckled despite the gravity of the situation, grateful for Cliff's lightheartedness in the face of adversity. With Scarlet and her father safely in tow, they made their way to Cliff's house, where they were greeted by Cliff's parents with concern and relief. After explaining the situation to Cliff's parents, they wasted no time in formulating a plan to find Dex's parents and ensure their safety. With the streets still teeming with chaos, Dex knew that their journey would be fraught with danger, but with his friends by his side, he felt confident that they could overcome whatever obstacles lay ahead. And as they set out into the unknown, Dex couldn't help but feel a sense of determination to reunite with his family and put an end to the nightmare that had befallen their town. Chapter 6. In Search of Safety. The trio, Dex, Cliff, and Cliff's dad, Mr. Anderson, embarked on their daunting quest to locate Dex's parents amid the chaos of Sleepy Valley Wood. Their footsteps echoed through the eerily deserted streets, the only sound punctuating the silence being the distant moans of the infected. "This is crazy, Dex," Cliff muttered, his voice tight with worry. "Do you even have any idea where your parents might be?" Dex shook his head, his heart heavy with concern. "Not really. They could be anywhere. We just have to keep searching." Mr. Anderson placed a reassuring hand on Dex's shoulder. "We'll find them, Dex. Don't lose hope." As they moved cautiously through the desolate streets, their progress was interrupted by the sudden appearance of military vehicles, their ominous presence casting a shadow over the already tense atmosphere. Cliff cursed under his breath, his eyes darting nervously between the approaching vehicles and his companions. "Looks like we've got company. What do we do now?" Dex's mind raced as he surveyed their surroundings, searching for any sign of escape. "We need to find cover fast. Follow me." With Dex leading the way, the group ducked into a nearby alleyway, their hearts pounding with fear as the sound of approaching footsteps grew louder. They huddled together in the darkness, their breath coming in ragged gasps as they waited for the inevitable confrontation. Suddenly, Cliff's dad spoke up, his voice steady despite the gravity of their situation. "There's a hidden passage nearby. Follow me and stay close." Without hesitation, the group followed Mr. Anderson through the labyrinthine network of alleyways, their footsteps echoing off the walls as they raced to evade capture. The sounds of pursuit grew fainter with each passing moment, until finally, they emerged into the relative safety of an abandoned building. As they caught their breath, Dex couldn't help but feel a sense of gratitude towards his friends and Mr. Anderson for their unwavering support. Chapter 7. Nightmare's Grip. As the trio ventured forth into the heart of the chaos-ridden streets, Dex couldn't shake the overwhelming sense of dread that permeated the air. The once familiar roads were now transformed into a nightmarish battleground, where the shrieks of the infected mingled with the shouts of terrified civilians and the rumble of military vehicles. Cliff's dad, a sturdy figure with years of experience etched into his weathered features, led the way with a steely resolve. "Stay close, boys," he cautioned, his voice cutting through the cacophony of chaos around them. "We need to keep moving if we're going to find Dex's parents." Dex nodded, his heart pounding in his chest as they weaved through the maze of abandoned cars and debris-strewn streets. Scarlet's absence left a void in the group, a silent reminder of the dangers they faced alone. Their search was interrupted by the sudden arrival of military convoys, their imposing vehicles casting long shadows in the flickering streetlights. Dex's pulse quickened as he watched the soldiers fan out, their weapons at the ready as they scanned the area for any sign of movement. Cliff's dad motioned for them to duck into a nearby alleyway, his expression grim as he assessed their options. "We need to lay low until they pass," he whispered, his eyes darting nervously towards the approaching soldiers. "We can't risk drawing their attention." As they huddled in the darkness, Dex's senses were assaulted by the sights and sounds of the war zone unfolding around them. Gunfire echoed in the distance, punctuated by the anguished cries of those caught in the crossfire. It was a scene straight out of a nightmare, one that Dex knew would haunt him for years to come. But amidst the horror and chaos, a monstrous figure emerged from the shadows, a grotesque mutation, towering over the soldiers with primal fury. Its grotesque form sent shivers down Dex's spine, the stench of decay clinging to its misshapen limbs. With a guttural roar, the mutant lunged at the soldiers, its claws tearing through flesh and bone with savage precision. Dex watched in horror as the military personnel fought back with desperate ferocity, their weapons no match for the creature's unnatural strength. Cliff's dad seized the opportunity to slip past the chaos, his movements swift and calculated as he led Dex through the carnage. They crept through the shadows, their hearts racing with fear as they skirted the edge of the battlefield. As they emerged onto the other side, Dex couldn't help but feel a sense of relief wash over him. The horror of what they had witnessed would stay with him forever. Chapter 8. Descent into Darkness. Before making their way to the old drainage pipe, Dex, Cliff, and Cliff's dad knew they needed to pick up Scarlet, Scarlet's dad, and Cliff's mom. Their journey to reunite with their friends was fraught with danger, with the streets teeming with violence and chaos. As they navigated through the war-torn streets, the group witnessed unspeakable atrocities at the hands of the military. Soldiers gunned down civilians without mercy, their orders to contain the outbreak leaving no room for compassion or humanity. Dex's stomach churned with disgust as he watched the senseless bloodshed unfold before his eyes. But there was no time to dwell on the horrors they witnessed. They needed to find Scarlet and her family before it was too late. Their search led them to an abandoned building on the outskirts of town, where Scarlet and her family had taken refuge from the madness outside. But as they approached, they were met with the chilling sight of soldiers converging on the building, their weapons trained on the terrified civilians huddled inside. "We have to do something," Dex whispered, his voice trembling with fear and resolve. Cliff's dad nodded in agreement, his expression grim as he assessed the situation. "We can't let them hurt Scarlet and her family." With a silent understanding, the group sprang into action, launching a daring rescue mission to save their friends from the clutches of the military. But as they moved closer, a lone soldier stood in their path, his weapon raised in warning. "Stop right there," the soldier barked, his voice filled with authority. "This is a restricted area. You need to leave immediately." Dex felt his heart race as he locked eyes with the soldier, his hand inching towards the weapon at his side. There was no turning back now. They had to act fast to save Scarlet and her family from harm. Cliff's dad stepped forward, his voice steady despite the tension that hung in the air. "We're not leaving without our friends. Stand aside, soldier." But the soldier refused to back down, his finger tightening on the trigger as he prepared to open fire. With no other choice, Dex lunged forward, his instincts taking over as he grappled with the soldier in a desperate bid to disarm him. The sound of gunfire echoed through the abandoned building as the group fought tooth and nail to overpower the soldier. With a final desperate struggle, Dex managed to wrestle the weapon from the soldier's grasp, the echo of his own heartbeat drowning out the chaos around him. As the group subdued the soldier, Dex and Cliff's dad swiftly disarmed him, their hands moving with practiced precision to relieve him of his weapons. The soldier struggled against their grasp, his protests drowned out by the chaos echoing through the abandoned building. "Stay down and don't make any sudden moves," Dex warned, his voice edged with authority as he pressed the soldier's own weapon against him, the cold metal a stark reminder of the danger they faced. Cliff's dad secured the soldier's other weapons, his movements swift and efficient as he checked them for ammunition. With the threat neutralized, they turned their attention to Scarlet and her family, ensuring they were unharmed. With caution still paramount in their minds, Dex, Cliff, and Cliff's dad methodically bound the soldier's hands and feet with whatever makeshift restraints they could find nearby. Each knot was meticulously tightened, ensuring the soldier would remain subdued and unable to pose a threat. "We can't take any chances," Cliff's dad remarked, his voice grave as he surveyed their handiwork. "We need to make sure he can't follow us or cause any more trouble." Dex nodded in agreement, his jaws set with determination. "We'll leave him here for now. Hopefully someone will come along and find him before he can cause any harm." Amidst the tension and turmoil, Cliff's mom and dad exchanged a few whispered words, their voices barely audible over the chaos surrounding them. "We can't stay here," Cliff's mom said, her eyes flickering with fear as she glanced at her husband. "We need to get out of this town before it's too late." Cliff's dad nodded solemnly, his jaw set with determination. "I know, honey, but we can't leave without Dex and Scarlet. They're like family to us." Cliff's mom reached out to grasp her husband's hand, her touch a silent reassurance in the midst of uncertainty. "We'll find a way to get through this together. We always do." As the dust settled, Dex looked around to see Scarlet and her family emerging from the building unharmed, their eyes filled with gratitude and relief. But there was no time to celebrate. They still needed to make their escape before the military reinforcements arrived. The group made their way to the old drainage pipe, their hearts heavy with the weight of what they had witnessed. But as they descended into the darkness below, Dex couldn't help but feel a glimmer of hope amidst the despair. A flickering light of defiance against the encroaching darkness that threatened to consume them all. Chapter 9. Into the Abyss. As the group trudged through the murky depths of the sewers, the oppressive darkness seemed to close in around them, suffocating in its embrace. The air was thick with the stench of decay, the sounds of chaos echoing through the labyrinthine tunnels. Above them, the distant whirring of helicopter blades mingled with the deafening roar of gunfire, a constant reminder of the war raging on the surface. Unearthly screams pierced the air, sending shivers down their spines as they pressed forward, their hearts heavy with dread. Suddenly, a guttural, inhuman scream echoed through the darkness, freezing them in their tracks. Their eyes widened in terror as they peered into the gloom, the hairs on the back of their necks standing on end. Cliff's dad cursed under his breath, his knuckles white as he gripped his weapon tightly. "What in the hell is that thing?" he muttered, his voice trembling with fear and disbelief. Dex swallowed hard, his throat dry as he struggled to find the words. I don't know, but we need to keep moving. We can't stay here." Cliff nodded grimly, his jaw set with determination. "Agreed, let's take it down before it gets any closer." With a shared glance, the group readied their weapons, their hearts pounding with adrenaline as they prepared to face the monstrous abomination before them. But as they opened fire, their bullets seemed to have little effect on the creature's thick hide. Its bloodshot eyes gleamed with malevolent intelligence as it let out a deafening roar, its tentacles lashing out with deadly precision. "We need to find another way around," Cliff shouted above the chaos, his voice barely audible over the creature's unearthly shrieks. "There's no way we can take this thing head-on." Dex nodded in agreement, his mind racing as he scanned their surroundings for any possible escape route. "There's a side passage up ahead," he called out, pointing towards a narrow opening in the wall. "It's our best chance." With a renewed sense of urgency, the group sprinted towards the side passage, their hearts pounding with fear and determination. As they ducked into the narrow opening, they could still hear the creature's enraged roars echoing through the tunnels behind them. Chapter 10. Desperate Measures. As the group hurried through the narrow side passage, their footsteps echoing in the darkness, a sense of unease hung heavy in the air. The memory of the monstrous parasite loomed large in their minds, its grotesque form still fresh in their memories. Suddenly, without warning, a slimy tentacle shot out from the shadows, wrapping itself around Scarlet's leg with a vice-like grip. She cried out in terror as she was yanked backwards, her fingers clawing at the damp stone floor in a desperate bid for purchase. "Scarlet!" Dex shouted, his heart pounding in his chest as he lunged forward, his mind racing for a solution. In a flash of inspiration, he reached into his pocket, retrieving a vial of reagent from the lab. With trembling hands, Dex uncorked the vial and hurled its contents at the writhing tentacle. The reagent sizzled on contact with the creature's slimy flesh, emitting noxious smoke as it corroded the appendage. The parasite let out an ear-splitting screech of pain, its grip on Scarlet loosening as it recoiled from the acidic assault. With a final desperate tug, Dex managed to pull Scarlet free from its clutches, her breath coming in ragged gasps as she scrambled to her feet. "Thank you, Dex," Scarlet gasped, her eyes wide with gratitude as she clung to him for support. "I thought I was a goner." Dex smiled weakly, relief flooding through him as he hugged her tightly. "I'll always have your back, Scarlet. We're in this together." As they held each other, Scarlet's heart raced with a different kind of fear, the fear of losing the chance to tell Dex how she truly felt. Gathering her courage, she pulled back slightly, looking into his eyes with a vulnerability she had never shown before. "Dex, there's something I need to tell you," she began, her voice trembling with emotion. "I've always admired you. You're brave and kind, and I think I might have feelings for you." Dex's eyes widened in surprise, his heart skipping a beat at her confession. Before he could respond, however, Scarlet flashed him a mischievous grin, her usual teasing tone returning in full force. "But don't let it go to your head," she teased, nudging him playfully. "We've got zombies to kill, remember?" Dex laughed, relief flooding through him at the return to their familiar banter. "Right, of course. Zombies first, feelings later." Chapter 11. Sacrifice in the Shadows. The damp tunnels echoed with the group's hurried footsteps, their breaths quickening as they felt the tension in the air thicken. Suddenly, a guttural growl shattered the silence, causing them to freeze in terror. Cliff's mom gasped, her eyes widening with fear as she stumbled backward. "What was that?" Before anyone could respond, a nightmarish creature lunged from the darkness, its twisted form striking towards Cliff's mom with frightening speed. "Mom, watch out!" Cliff cried, his voice thick with panic as he lunged forward, desperate to shield her from harm. But before Cliff could reach her, his dad leaped in front, his actions fueled by a father's instinct to protect his family. "No, don't!" There was a sickening sound as the creature's claws tore through flesh and bone, ripping Cliff's dad apart before their horrified eyes. "Dad!" Cliff shouted, and his voice choked with anguish as he watched in disbelief. Dex's hands shook as he fumbled for the gun, his heart pounding with fear and determination. "We need to do something." With trembling aim, he fired at the creature, the sound of gunfire reverberating through the tunnels. But the creature was undeterred, turning its attention towards them with a blood-curdling roar. "We have to go now," Dex shouted, his voice urgent as he grabbed Cliff's arm, pulling him away from the horror that now pursued them. As they ran, their breaths ragged and hearts pounding, Scarlet's voice trembled with fear. "What was that thing?" Dex's jaw tightened with grim resolve. "I don't know, but we can't stay here to find out. We have to keep moving." But their relief was short-lived as another growl echoed through the tunnels, and they turned to see Scarlet's dad being dragged away by the creature. "Scarlet's dad!" Dex yelled, his heart sinking as they witnessed the horrifying sight. "We have to save him," Cliff shouted, his voice raw with desperation, as they rushed to his aid. But before they could reach him, the creature disappeared into the darkness, Scarlet's anguished cries echoing in their ears. Chapter 12. Emergence from Darkness. The group emerged from the sewer pipe, blinking in the dim light of dawn as they stepped onto the outskirts of town. The air was heavy with the stench of decay, a grim reminder of the horrors they had left behind in the darkness below. Cliff's mom collapsed to her knees, her shoulders shaking with silent sobs as the reality of their ordeal sank in. Dex's mom and dad rushed to her side, their faces etched with concern as they tried to offer comfort. "Mom, are you okay?" Cliff's voice cracked with emotion as he kneeled beside her, his heart heavy with guilt. She shook her head, tears streaming down her cheeks as she struggled to find the words. "I just can't believe he's gone. He sacrificed himself to save me." Dex's mom wrapped her arms around Cliff's mom, offering a comforting embrace. "I'm so sorry, dear. We'll get through this together." As they huddled together, the first rays of sunlight broke through the horizon, casting a golden glow over the desolate landscape. In the distance, a jet soared overhead, a stark contrast to the chaos and devastation below. But as they took in the scene before them, a sense of unease settled over the group. Something was not quite right about this place, something lurking just beneath the surface. As they scanned the horizon, their eyes were drawn to a field nearby, the tall grass swaying in the gentle breeze. But there was something off about the way it moved, something unnatural that sent shivers down their spines. With a sinking feeling in the pit of his stomach, Dex stepped forward, his instincts screaming at him to flee. But before he could utter a word of warning, the ground beneath them began to tremble, a low, ominous rumble building in intensity. And then, with a deafening roar, the earth erupted in a shower of dirt and debris, revealing a sight that struck fear into the hearts of all who beheld it. A horde of grotesque creatures, their twisted forms writhing with malevolent intent as they surged towards the group with ravenous hunger in their eyes. "Run!" Dex shouted, his voice drowned out by the cacophony of screams and growls that filled the air. With adrenaline coursing through their veins, the group fled into the unknown, their desperate flight a chilling reminder that even in the light of day, the darkness still held sway over their fate. The group ran through the desolate landscape, their hearts pounding with fear as they fled from the approaching horde. Behind them, the grotesque creatures surged forward with unnatural speed, their unearthly shrieks echoing in their ears. Dex's mind raced as he searched for a way to escape, his thoughts consumed by the grim realization that they were hopelessly outnumbered and outmatched. But as he cast his gaze around the barren landscape, his eyes fell upon a distant structure, a dilapidated farmhouse looming on the horizon. "There," Dex cried, his voice barely audible above the roar of the pursuing horde. "We need to make it to that farmhouse." With renewed determination, the group pushed forward, their legs burning with exertion as they raced towards the relative safety of the farmhouse. Every step felt like an eternity as they fought to outpace their relentless pursuers, the gap between them narrowing with each passing moment. As they reached the dilapidated structure, Dex's heart sank at the sight before them. The farmhouse was nothing more than a crumbling ruin, its walls covered in graffiti and its windows shattered by years of neglect. But there was no time to dwell on their misfortune. With the horde closing in behind them, they scrambled through the broken doorway, seeking refuge within the decaying interior of the farmhouse. Inside, the air was thick with dust and decay, with the smell of rot clinging to every surface. The group huddled together in the darkness, their breaths coming in ragged gasps as they waited for the inevitable onslaught. Minutes passed like hours as they listened to the sound of their pursuers drawing closer, the earth shaking beneath the weight of their approach. And then, with a deafening crash, the creatures descended upon them, their twisted forms pouring through the shattered doorway like a flood of nightmarish proportions. In the chaos that followed, Dex fought with every ounce of strength he possessed, his mind consumed by a primal instinct to survive. Scarlet stood beside him, her courage unwavering as she fought back against the advancing horde. "Keep them back," Dex shouted, his voice strained with effort as he swung a broken piece of wood at the creatures, their grotesque forms writhing with hunger. Cliff's mom, her face a mask of terror, cowered in a corner of the room, her eyes wide with fear as she watched the onslaught unfold before her. "Stay close to me, Mom!" Cliff yelled, his voice filled with desperation as he tried to shield his mother from the advancing horde. But despite their efforts, the creatures pressed forward, their numbers overwhelming as they closed in on their prey. With a desperate cry, Cliff swung a piece of debris at the creatures, his blows landing with bone-crunching force. But it was not enough. With a sickening thud, Cliff's mom was dragged to the ground by the relentless horde, her screams echoing in the darkness as she was torn apart before their horrified eyes. Dex's heart shattered as he watched Cliff's mom fall, his mind numb with grief and disbelief. But even as tears streamed down his face, he knew that they could not afford to dwell on their losses, not when their own lives hung in the balance. With a renewed sense of determination, Dex grabbed Scarlet's hand, pulling her towards a narrow staircase hidden in the darkness of the farmhouse. "Follow me," he shouted, his voice echoing in the chaos as they raced towards the relative safety of the upper floor. With adrenaline coursing through their veins, they fought their way through the horde, their hearts pounding with fear and determination. As they reached the top of the staircase, they found themselves face to face with a narrow window, the first rays of dawn breaking through the darkness beyond. Without hesitation, Dex smashed through the window, pulling Scarlet walked through with him as they tumbled into the cold embrace of the morning air. For a moment they lay there, panting and exhausted, their bodies battered but their spirits unbroken. As they looked out over the desolate landscape, a sense of relief washed over them. They had survived the horrors of the night, emerging battered but alive from the darkness that had threatened to consume them. But their relief was short-lived as they turned to see Cliff, his face pale with shock and grief, standing alone amidst the wreckage of the farmhouse. "My mom, she's gone," Cliff whispered, his voice choked with emotion as he surveyed the devastation around him. Dex reached out, placing a comforting hand on Cliff's shoulder. "I'm so sorry, Cliff. We did everything we could." Cliff nodded, his eyes filled with tears as he struggled to come to terms with the loss of his mother. But even amid his grief, he knew that they had to keep moving. "We need to get out of here," Cliff said, his voice trembling with determination. "We can't stay here any longer." With a heavy heart, Dex nodded in agreement. Together, they turned away from the ruins of the farmhouse, their minds filled with sorrow and despair as they faced the uncertain road ahead. Jake gently pushed the back door of the alley open, burdened with a couple of garbage bags. He walked over to the dumpster, heaving the bags in with a tired sigh. Leaning on the edge of the bin, he stretched his back, letting out a yawn. Suddenly, the sound of running steps reached his ears. "Come on, man. I'm tired and sore. I can't do this right now," Jake protested as two familiar bullies from school sprinted past him, fear in their eyes. Puzzled, he wondered why they didn't beat him up as usual. Soon after, Blake, the main bully, came running, slapping Jake upside the head, yelling, "Run, you moron," before disappearing around the corner. Holding his head, Jake questioned the strange behavior. Just as he was about to turn back, growls and more running footsteps approached from the end of the alley. Jake turned to see a horde of people running towards him. At first, he thought it was a prank until he noticed the blood and missing limbs among the crowd. "Wow, whoa." Jake started running down the alley, barely escaping the grasp of the ravenous crowd. Chaos unfolded around him. People running for their lives, cars crashing, gunshots and screams echoing in the distance. Amid the pandemonium, a car screeched to a stop in front of Jake. To his surprise, Blake grabbed and pulled him into the driver's seat. "What the hell, man?" Jake exclaimed as Blake sped off, narrowly avoiding the chaos. Half of Jake's body dangled out of the car window, and a hand grabbed at his pants, leaving his legs bare. Blake maneuvered through the chaos, shouting at Jake to get his pasty white ass out of his face. Adjusting himself into the passenger seat, Jake realized his legs were exposed. Blake explained the horrifying events they witnessed near the school and the sudden appearance of these relentless pursuers. Jake looked out to see helicopters flying west, realizing the town was overrun by zombies. Blake handed Jake a bag with spare clothes, urging him to change. As Jake grumbled about the condition of the clothes, Blake smacked him and emphasized the need to put something on. After the quick change, Jake questioned their destination. Blake suggested heading west, following the helicopters to find a safe place and refuel along the way. When asked about his family, Blake dismissed the idea, mentioning his problematic father and expressing more concern for his pet rabbit, Snuggles. Jake shared his detached connection to his foster family and agreed to the plan of heading west. Amidst the chaos, laughter, and smacks, the duo set out on an uncertain and perilous journey. The night unfolded with the hum of the engine and the eerie glow of streetlights flashing by as Blake navigated through the chaos. Jake couldn't shake the surreal feeling of their escape. The distant sounds of gunshots and screams continued, a haunting backdrop to their journey. As they sped down the highway, joining the swarm of desperate vehicles fleeing the town, Jake glanced at the helicopter lights in the distance. The darkness was punctuated by the occasional explosion or the distant moans of the undead. It all felt like a nightmare Jake couldn't wake up from. With the car radio malfunctioning, their only connection to the outside world was the visual chaos playing out beyond the windshield. Blake's grip on the steering wheel tightened as they encountered more obstacles on the road. Abandoned vehicles, panicked pedestrians, and the occasional stumbling figure that sent shivers down Jake's spine. Blake broke the tense silence, his eyes focused on the road ahead. "We need to find a safe place, get some supplies, and figure out what the hell is happening." Jake, still processing the events, nodded in agreement. "Yeah, but where? And what's causing all of this?" Blake shot him a serious look. "I don't know, man, but we can't stay here. We follow those helicopters, hope they lead us to safety." The miles passed and the night deepened. The once familiar surroundings now felt like an alien landscape. As they approached a gas station, Blake pulled over. The flickering fluorescent lights illuminated the scene, revealing scattered debris and a sense of abandonment. "We need fuel," Blake stated the obvious, looking around cautiously. "And anything else we can scavenge." As they filled up the tank, Jake wandered through the convenience store, grabbing water bottles and non-perishables. The silence was broken only by the hum of the generator, creating an unsettling contrast to the chaos outside. Back in the car, Blake glanced at Jake. "We can't do this alone. We need to find others, survivors like us." Jake nodded, realizing the magnitude of their situation. The radio crackled to life, a voice breaking through the static. "If you can hear this, head to the evacuation point. Coordinates are..." Blake tuned in, jotting down the coordinates on a piece of paper. "Evacuation point. Might be our best shot." The journey continued, the road stretching endlessly. They encountered pockets of survivors, forming impromptu alliances, sharing information, and piecing together the fragmented details of the unfolding disaster. As they neared the evacuation point, signs of hope emerged. Military personnel directed the survivors, and a sense of organization replaced the previous chaos. The helicopters above provided a surreal sense of security. Amid relief, Jake looked at Blake. "We made it." But the uncertainty lingered in Blake's eyes. "This might just be the beginning, Jake. We survived tonight, but who knows what tomorrow will bring." The evacuation point, though seemingly secure, exuded an unsettling atmosphere. The air was thick with tension, and shadows danced ominously under the flickering lights. As Jake and Blake approached the designated area, a gnawing feeling of dread clawed at them. The military personnel ushered survivors into a massive, dimly lit warehouse. The echoing footsteps and distant whispers created an eerie symphony of anxiety. The air smelled of fear and desperation, a stark contrast to the reassuring facade of order. Once inside, they noticed a group huddled in the corner, their faces etched with terror. A woman, her eyes vacant, mumbled unintelligibly to herself. As Jake and Blake cautiously joined the gathering, the woman turned to them, her gaze sending shivers down their spines. "They're everywhere," she whispered, her voice quivering. "No escape." The realization dawned on Jake and Blake that safety was an illusion, and the nightmare had followed them into this supposed haven. The military personnel, armed and on edge, exchanged hushed conversations, their expressions betraying a hidden fear. The warehouse seemed to amplify every creak and groan, heightening the oppressive atmosphere. Suddenly the lights flickered, casting elongated shadows on the cold concrete floor. An ominous silence enveloped the space as the electricity momentarily failed. A guttural moan echoed through the darkness, and panic rippled through the survivors. The military personnel hurriedly checked their weapons, their trained composure strained by the encroaching dread. The woman from the corner began to scream, her cries of despair mingling with the distant sounds of something inhuman. The survivors, once hopeful, now clung to each other in terror. A low growl reverberated from the shadows, and Blake instinctively pulled Jake closer. The oppressive darkness seemed to conceal unseen horrors, making every corner a potential threat. A sudden burst of gunfire shattered the uneasy quiet, punctuated by agonized screams. Panic erupted within the warehouse as survivors scattered, seeking refuge from an unseen menace. Jake and Blake, propelled by fear, fled into the labyrinthine corridors of the warehouse. The occasional flickering emergency lights only heightened the sense of vulnerability, their footsteps echoing like a sinister heartbeat. As they turned a corner, they stumbled upon a grisly scene. Military personnel, now turned, feasting on the remains of their comrades. The stench of blood and decay hung heavily in the air. Frozen in terror, Jake and Blake witnessed the grotesque transformation of those they thought were protectors. Without a word, they retraced their steps, guided only by the haunting sounds of pursuit. The once promising evacuation point now felt like a death trap, a nightmarish maze with no escape. In the pitch-black darkness, a distant whisper echoed, carrying a chilling message. No one survives. Their desperate flight continued, haunted by the relentless pursuit of the unknown horror lurking within the shadows of the supposed haven. As Jake and Blake navigated the twisted corridors of the warehouse, the unsettling echoes of their footsteps mingled with the distant moans and guttural growls of the pursuing horrors. The air hung heavy with dread, every shadow concealing potential terror. The emergency lights continued their sporadic dance, casting fleeting glimpses of the horrors that lurked in the dark. The survivors they encountered along the way were no longer human. Their vacant eyes and twisted, contorted faces revealed the insidious transformation that had taken hold. Cornered by a dead end, Jake and Blake shared a panicked glance. The unsettling sound of dragging footsteps echoed closer. The silhouette of a disfigured figure emerged from the shadows, its features obscured by the dim light. A chilling realization dawned. The once human creature hungered for their flesh. Without hesitation, they retraced their steps, navigating the labyrinthine corridors in a desperate attempt to evade the encroaching nightmare. The warehouse seemed to warp and shift, its structure becoming an inescapable maze. Panic tightened its grip as the guttural sounds of pursuit intensified. Amidst the chaos, Blake spotted a partially ajar door leading to what appeared to be an office. With a burst of adrenaline, they rushed inside, slamming the door shut behind them. The room was a temporary sanctuary, the silence a stark contrast to the pandemonium beyond. They caught their breath, acutely aware that the monsters lurked just outside the fragile barrier. As they scanned the room for any signs of safety, their eyes fell upon a flickering computer screen. Blake hurriedly tapped the keyboard, hoping to uncover information that might offer a shred of hope. The screen displayed fragmented messages, government warnings, and encrypted files. The realization sank in. The outbreak was not an isolated incident. The government had known, and whatever hellish experiment had been unleashed was now consuming everything in its path. A low growl emanated from the other side of the door, the creatures outside sensing their presence. The flickering lights cast distorted shadows, heightening the oppressive atmosphere. Blake found a makeshift weapon, a metal pipe left abandoned in the corner. The door trembled under the force of the pursuing horrors. Fear etched across their faces. Jake and Blake knew they had only moments before the fragile barrier gave way. The realization that the true horror lay not just in the monsters outside, but in the knowledge that nowhere was safe. In a desperate attempt to escape, they located a vent in the corner of the room. With a quick exchange of glances, they removed the vent cover, revealing the dark abyss beyond. Crawling into the confined space, the echoes of their frantic breaths mingled with the growls of the pursuing creatures. As they navigated the claustrophobic maze of vents, the haunting sounds of pursuit faded, replaced by an eerie stillness. Little did they know that the vent network stretched throughout the warehouse, offering both a potential route to safety and a dark labyrinth where new horrors awaited. The chilling whisper lingered in the air. No one survives. The nightmare had only just begun, and the warehouse's dark corridors held secrets that defied reason. The horror continued to unfold, twisting their reality into a nightmarish tapestry of survival and despair. Jake and Blake crawled through the labyrinthine vents, their hope of escaping the horrors outside slowly dwindling. The stifling darkness enveloped them, each twist and turn increasing their disorientation. As they crawled deeper into the unknown, an ominous realization crept over them. The vent system was a maze with no clear exit. The distant sounds of pursuit and guttural growls persisted, echoing through the metallic passages. The oppressive atmosphere within the vents seemed to intensify, a palpable sense of doom settling in their chests. Their flashlights flickered, casting erratic shadows on the cold metallic surfaces. Suddenly, the vent ahead of them seemed to widen into a dimly lit chamber. Eager for a respite, they cautiously crawled out, only to find themselves in a nightmarish space. As Jake and Blake prepared to make their last stand against the encroaching horde, a sudden rumbling shook the chamber, causing debris to rain down from above. "What the hell is happening?" Jake shouted over the din, his voice trembling with fear. Blake's eyes widened in horror as he looked up at the crumbling ceiling. "I don't know, but we need to get out of here, now." Before they could react, the massive, grotesque creature emerged from the shadows above them, its eyes glowing with an otherworldly intensity. "Oh my God," Jake breathed, his heart pounding in his chest. "What is that thing?" Blake shook his head, his expression grim. "I don't think we want to find out." As the creature reached down with massive, clawed hands, the ravenous horde closed in around them, their hungry moans filling the chamber with dread. "We have to do something," Jake cried, his hands shaking as he searched for a weapon. But before they could make a move, the chamber erupted into chaos as the creature and the horde clashed in a frenzied battle. "We need to find cover," Blake shouted, pulling Jake towards a pile of debris. As they huddled together, the ground beneath their feet began to tremble violently, threatening to collapse at any moment. "We're trapped," Jake exclaimed, his voice rising in panic. "We'll find a way out," Blake replied, his tone determined despite the fear in his eyes. "We have to keep fighting." In a final, desperate act of defiance, they braced themselves for the inevitable as the darkness closed in around them. engulfing them in a maelstrom of terror and despair. And as the chamber crumbled into ruins, their screams were swallowed by the abyss, leaving behind only the chilling whisper of the nightmarish horrors that lurked within. Chapter 1. Whispering Woods. The moon hung low in the ink-black sky, casting an eerie glow on the desolate cabin nestled deep in the heart of the woods. John, a man of few words, stared out of the window, the distant sound of snapping twigs and rustling leaves the only companions in the silent night. The radio crackled with fragmented news reports, cities overrun, chaos spreading, a viral outbreak consuming the world. John's heart raced as the reality of the situation dawned on him. He paced the small cabin, running a hand through his disheveled hair, a sense of dread settling in the pit of his stomach. "This can't be happening," he muttered to himself, eyes darting around the room as if searching for answers in the dim light. A sudden thud echoed from outside, causing John to freeze. He approached the door cautiously, his hand trembling as he reached for the doorknob. The cold metal sent a shiver down his spine as he pulled the door open, revealing the pitch-black expanse beyond. In the shadows, he discerned the silhouette of a figure, staggering and swaying. Fear gripped him as the figure turned, its eyes vacant, its movements unnatural. A guttural moan escaped its lips, and John stumbled backward, slamming the door shut. "No, no, no," he whispered, panic rising within him. He rushed to the radio, desperately tuning into any signal that could provide clarity. The voices on the airwaves were a cacophony of fear, confusion, and pleas for help. The outbreak had reached catastrophic proportions, leaving John feeling like a lone survivor adrift in a sea of madness. As the night wore on, the distant moans of the infected mingled with the haunting whispers of the wind. John, trapped in the cabin, clutched a flashlight and a kitchen knife, his only defenses against the unknown terror that lurked beyond the wooden walls. In the flickering candlelight, he sat in the corner of the room, eyes wide, and ears strained for any sign of approaching danger. The once comforting solitude of the woods now felt like a prison, each creak and groan of the cabin a reminder of the encroaching darkness. Chapter 2. Echoes of Desolation. The air inside the cabin hung heavy with tension as John fumbled with the TV remote, desperately trying to glean any information from the flickering screen. The news reports painted a bleak picture: cities overwhelmed, governments collapsing, and the relentless spread of the viral outbreak. The infection, slow but inexorable, seemed to seep into every corner of the world. "What do I do? How do I survive this?" John muttered, his eyes fixed on the television as if it held the answers to the nightmare unfolding outside. Outside the cabin, the numbers of the infected began to grow, their distorted silhouettes visible through the thin curtains. Their movements were sluggish, but the sheer mass of their presence sent a shiver down John's spine. It was as if they could sense his existence, drawn to the isolated cabin like moths to a flame. With a sinking feeling, John turned the dial on the radio, hoping for guidance on how to defend against the encroaching threat. The voices on the radio spoke of desperation, improvised weapons, headshots, and the importance of avoiding close encounters. The infected were relentless, and only a blow to the brain seemed to ensure their demise. Arming himself with a baseball bat and a kitchen knife, John hesitated by the door, the distant groans of the infected reaching a haunting crescendo. The realization hit him: survival meant confronting the horrors outside. As he stepped into the moonlit night, the dense forest seemed to come alive with the slow shuffle of the infected. Each step was a dance with death, and every swing of the bat was a desperate plea for survival. The metallic thud of the baseball bat against decaying skulls echoed through the trees, each strike accompanied by the low moans of the fallen. In the eerie silence that followed, John's breath hung in the frigid air as he surveyed the darkened surroundings. The town, once a haven, loomed in the distance. The moonlight revealed its eerie silhouette, a desolate place that once thrived with life. His heart pounded as he took his first steps toward the town, a sense of foreboding settling over him. The forest whispered tales of the horrors that awaited, and John, armed with a bat and knife, braced himself for the unknown horrors that lurked in the shadows. Chapter 3. Shadows in Daylight. The first rays of dawn began to break over the small East European town, casting long shadows on its broken streets. The city, once a vibrant tapestry of life, now lay in ruins. Shattered glass and remnants of barricades painted a picture of chaos that had befallen the unsuspecting community. As John cautiously navigated the debris-strewn streets, the remnants of the night's horrors evident in every corner, he spotted a clinic, its doors ajar, inviting him into the unknown. Inside, broken furniture and toppled equipment painted a grim picture, but amidst the chaos, John discovered medical supplies, bandages, antibiotics, and painkillers that could prove invaluable in the days to come. Rummaging through the supplies, a muffled sound caught his attention. Huddled in one of the nurses' stations, a small boy and his mother cowered, fear etched across their faces. John approached cautiously, assuring them that he meant no harm. "Are you the only ones left?" he asked, the weight of the question hanging in the air. The boy's name was Alex and his mother was Elena. They shared a harrowing tale of the outbreak. A visitor from out of town, unknowingly carrying the virus, had unleashed the pandemic upon the once isolated community. Alex, his eyes wide with a mix of fear and curiosity, spoke up. "We had to hide here. The infected were everywhere. It was like they knew we were here." Elena nodded in agreement, her voice strained with the weight of their ordeal. "We thought we were the last ones. The town fell apart so quickly and we had nowhere to go." John empathized with their plight, offering a glimmer of hope. He shared his plan to fortify his cabin in the woods, away from the infected masses. Alex and Elena, with nowhere else to turn, decided to join him on this perilous journey. As they left the clinic, supplies in tow, the city seemed to hold its breath. The sea of infected stood like silent sentinels, oblivious to the trio making their way through the desolate streets. The shadows of the town seemed to dance with whispers of the past, and the sun, now fully risen, painted the broken landscape in hues of sorrow. Chapter 4. Veiled Horizons. The trio made their way back to the cabin, the weight of the shotgun, an old break-action Spartan, hanging in John's grip. The young boy, Alex, gazed at the firearm with wide-eyed fascination, but John quickly moved it out of his reach, aware of the danger it posed in inexperienced hands. The gun chambered in 12J, and a handful of bullets were a grim reminder of the harsh realities they faced. "You'll have to wait until you're older to handle something like this, Alex," John cautioned, his eyes reflecting the gravity of their situation. As they walked, Elena began to recount the harrowing tale of the outbreak, her words weaving a narrative of fear and chaos. Her voice carried the weight of the tragedy that had befallen the small town. She explained how an unsuspecting visitor, sick and desperate in the clinic, broke free and unleashed the virus upon the unsuspecting community. The military's attempts to control the situation only led to further chaos, turning the town into a prison where citizens fought both the infected and the military. "It was like a nightmare we couldn't escape," Elena said, her voice filled with a mixture of sorrow and frustration. Amid this somber dialogue, Elena turned her attention to John, curiosity etched on her face. "Why were you in a cabin by yourself, John? What do you do for a living?" John, a writer by profession, responded, "I write horror." Elena chuckled. "What a strange choice in times like these. What kind of horror do you write?" "Everything," John replied with a wry smile, "but I never expected my stories to come to life." Amidst the laughter, Alex chimed in, "Well, I guess you're out of luck because horror is everywhere now." The group chuckled nervously, the reality of their situation hanging in the air. As they approached the cabin, tension lingered. A pair of infected stood frozen outside, seemingly in a hibernated state. Weird sounds emanated from them, adding an eerie soundtrack to the early morning. The group huddled, trying to figure out how to navigate past the frozen threats without alerting the others lurking nearby. Chapter 5. A Symphony of Chaos. The cabin, now a besieged fortress, echoed with the relentless pounding of infected outside. In the midst of the frantic turmoil, Emily emerged like a tempest, her wild auburn hair a flag of rebellion against the encroaching chaos. As the trio observed from their vantage point, Emily's entrance was nothing short of a cinematic revelation. She seized a bottle of whiskey, her movements deliberate and fluid. The glass shattered, the fragments glittering like a cascade of stars in the dim cabin interior. With a Molotov cocktail in hand, Emily approached a window, her gaze fierce and unyielding. In one fluid motion, she broke the glass, the shards sparkling in the flickering light. The fiery cocktail sailed through the night, landing amidst the horde with a burst of flames that painted the scene in an infernal glow. Undeterred by the encircling danger, Emily armed herself with a gun. The sharp report of a single shot echoed through the chaos as she dispatched one of the infected with uncanny precision, a headshot worthy of any action hero. But Emily's performance had only just begun. With a crowbar as her chosen weapon, she ascended to the rooftop with the agility of a parkour enthusiast. Flames licked at the edges, creating a halo of danger around her. On the cabin's rooftop, a battleground of flickering shadows, Emily's silhouette moved with a dance of calculated recklessness. With each swing and kick, she dispatched the infected, her movements a symphony of survival. The sharp edge of her crowbar became an extension of her unyielding will. As the chaos reached its peak, Emily reached into her bag, a repository of survival essentials. Amidst the makeshift bandages and medical supplies, she found a grenade, a last resort that spoke volumes about her willingness to go to extremes. In a bold move, she hurled the grenade over the edge, an explosion marking her dramatic descent from the rooftop. The world erupted in fiery chaos around her as she landed, her leg absorbing the impact with a painful jolt. "That didn't happen in the movies," Emily muttered, her wry smile fading into a grimace of pain. The trio, silent witnesses to her adrenaline-fueled spectacle, now faced the challenge of saving Emily from whatever remained of the infected. John proposed a plan. "I'll lead them away, make a lot of noise. Since they don't move fast, I can outrun them. Follow me to a hole I know. They might just jump in." As John executed his plan, Emily continued her valiant fight. Despite her injured leg, she swung and kicked, her crowbar an extension of her fierce will to survive. The battle reached a crescendo as John intervened. He threw a rock, screamed at the infected, and lured them away with a chaotic dance of noise. As if inspired by a child who had seen too many action movies, Emily quipped, "Where's everybody going? Is it bingo night?" Alex, in awe of her cool demeanor, exclaimed, "That's a cool line." Elena, more practical, rolled her eyes and urged, "Hurry up and get over here so we can fix you up." Chapter 6. Shadows of the Past. The remnants of John's leading the zombies away plan had left the cabin a charred memory. The group, now huddled in the smoky aftermath, began to assess their options. Emily, her hair still bearing traces of the fiery chaos, sprawled out with a carefree demeanor that belied the danger that had just unfolded. John, the seasoned survivor, returned from his mission, sweat and exhaustion etched on his face. "Well, the cabin's gone," he remarked dryly, surveying the blackened remains. "Guess we need a new place to hide." As they tended to Emily's injuries, the group huddled together, devising a plan to seek refuge in an old medieval castle atop a distant mountain. Declared a national park, it offered a sanctuary they hoped would be untouched by the spreading infection. With daylight fading, urgency took hold. Alex, wide-eyed and still processing Emily's daring exploits, voiced his admiration. "That was amazing, Emily. You're like a superhero or something." Emily, flashing a nonchalant smile, replied, "Just doing what I can, kid, surviving in style." Her carefree attitude resonated with a laid-back confidence that fascinated Alex, but practicality demanded a revised plan. "We won't make it to the castle in a day," Emily pointed out, unfolding a map and brandishing a compass. "But I know an old camp on the way. We can hole up there for the night." The group agreed, salvaging what they could from the remains of the cabin before embarking on their journey. Emily, leading with a swagger that defied the horrors surrounding them, set the pace. As they traversed the landscape, a chorus of dialogue filled the air, each character revealing glimpses of their personalities. "So, Emily, why were you in that cabin all by yourself?" John inquired, breaking the silence. Emily's response was characteristically breezy. "I was just looking for a quiet place, away from the noise. Didn't think you end up inviting all the dead folks for a party." Alex, unable to contain his admiration, chimed in, "You're the coolest person I've ever met. How did you learn to fight like that?" "Comic books and action movies, kid. You pick up a few tricks," Emily teased, a glint of mischief in her eyes. As they neared the old camp, the atmosphere shifted. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting elongated shadows that seemed to dance with whispered secrets. A distant howl echoed through the air, a chilling reminder of the horrors lurking beyond their vision. Chapter 7: Whispers in the Shadows. The once lively camp now lay in haunting silence as the group moved cautiously through abandoned tents, ever watchful for lurking horrors. Emily fearlessly approached two undead figures, her crowbar slicing through decayed flesh with an almost dance-like grace. With each swing, she delivered a catchphrase, turning the grim task into a macabre performance. "One for the crow, you undead fiend." John, the silent strategist, took a covert approach, using a kitchen knife to sever the connection of the second zombie to the living world. The night fell into an uneasy stillness. The decision to seek refuge in the main lodge was unanimous. Emily and John led the way, while Elena and Alex stood guard outside. Whispers of danger lingered in the night air, but the group pressed forward. Inside the lodge, anticipation hung heavy as Emily showcased her combat prowess, dismantling the undead threat with a choreographed dance of survival. Each strike is accompanied by another catchphrase. "Time for a little crowbar therapy, boys." With the lodge secured, tasks were allocated. Alex and Elena fortified the interior, ensuring the safety of their newfound haven. John gathered firewood while Emily, armed with chlorine tablets, set out to collect water for their journey. The night held an ominous stillness, broken by distant howls of the infected. Unbeknownst to the group, shadows moved on the outskirts, silhouettes of sinister intent. A group of 5 armed individuals clad in military gear was observed from a distance. "Look at that girl, she's got skills," one of the armed men remarked. "Yeah, I bet she's got a lot of other types of skills too," another man interjected with a perverted, dirty laugh. The woods echoed with rustling leaves and distant moans of the undead. The night was a canvas painted with uncertainty as the group, unaware of the impending threat, settled into their roles, preparing for the challenges the next day would bring. Chapter 8: Standoff. The night hung heavy with tension as the armed men closed in on the camp, their eyes fixed on John. A shot rang out, barely missing him, grazing his arm as he sought refuge behind a makeshift barricade. Out of nowhere, a voice echoed over a loudspeaker, cutting through the silence. "We want the women. We don't care about you and the boy. Give us them, and we'll let you go." Emily, never one to back down, shouted defiantly, "I don't think you guys could handle me. I'm sensing a lot of little penis energy." Laughter erupted from the bandits, one of them taunting, "I can show you that you're wrong, honey, if you come out here." The leader then issued an ultimatum. They had 1 minute to surrender the women, or they would breach the building. Emily, showcasing a sudden change in demeanor, played along. Okay, just give me a chance to say goodbye to my friends." As panic set in, Emily scrambled around the kitchen, gathering odds and ends to prepare for the impending confrontation. John, bewildered and armed only with a shotgun, struggled to formulate a plan against foes outfitted in high-edge military gear. At the end of the 1-minute countdown, the men outside warned, "We're coming in." Emily, seemingly unfazed, shouted back at them, "Yippee-ki-yay!" The chapter concluded in a tense standoff, the air thick with uncertainty, as Emily hinted at a plan rooted in her past experiences at the camp. Chapter 9: Dance of Shadows. The room erupted in blinding light and deafening blasts as the went off. Fully geared and expecting an easy takeover, the armed men, known by nicknames like Tank and Reaper, stormed in. The first room appeared clear, and they called out, "Clear!" Little did they know, a malicious surprise awaited them. A timer triggered the room's lights, illuminating their surroundings. It exploded with shotgun powder, injuring 2 of the soldiers instantly. The room filled with smoke, obscuring vision and setting the stage for an unexpected counterattack. In the thick haze, John, the silent strategist, questioned Emily about the origin of the smoke grenade. "Where did you get that?" "I snagged it when the army was blocking off the city earlier," Emily responded, her tone casual amidst the chaos. Using the smoke as cover, John, with calculated precision, fired 2 shots with the shotgun, aiming for the soldiers' legs, the vulnerable point in their heavily protected bodies. The blasts echoed through the room as the men, known as Shadow and Viper, grunted in pain. The tactical retreat left the remaining men, now disoriented and struggling to regroup, in a haze of confusion. Emily and John, their moves choreographed like a dance of shadows, disappeared into the depths of the lodge, leaving the men to question their ill-fated intrusion. Chapter 10. A Symphony of Chaos. The makeshift army, disarrayed and infuriated by the unexpected resistance, fumbled in their attempts to regroup. Hidden in the shadows, the survivors caught snippets of the men's angry curses and muttered frustrations. "I didn't sign up for this," one of them grumbled. Reaper, their leader, blinded by fury, tossed aside any semblance of a plan. "Forget getting the girl. Let's just kill them all." His enraged declaration reverberated through the night, intensifying the impending chaos. With their lives hanging in the balance, Emily, John, Elena, and Alex braced themselves for the onslaught. Armed adversaries clad in military gear advanced, driven by anger and vengeance. As the men charged forward, a man, blinded by rage and reckless abandon, sprinted into the fray. Unbeknownst to him, concealed by the smoke, lay a treacherous trap, barbed wire. He careened into it and his legs instantly gored. Writhing in pain, he crumpled to the ground, cursing the group in his agony. Seizing the opportunity, Emily, quick and lethal, approached the fallen man. In a swift, calculated motion, she plunged a blade into his neck, extinguishing his life in an instant. As his body fell silent, she darted away, avoiding the retaliatory gunfire from the remaining two soldiers. Chapter 11. The Symphony's Crescendo. As the soldiers ventured deeper into the lodge, their confidence swelled. They couldn't fathom the survivors could elude them for long in the confines of the vast but not limitless space. Their cocky disdain echoed through the hallways until they stumbled upon a room filled with cans tethered by a rope. "You think we're stupid, honey. We're not zombies. This is not going to work on us," one of the soldiers sneered. His bravado shattered as a shotgun round emerged from the ground, striking him down. The last remaining soldier, startled, fired blindly at the source, hitting John's leg as he vanished once again. Cursing the group for the havoc they'd wrought, the lone soldier found himself interrupted by the blare of the lodge's intercom. Emily's voice, cold and unwavering, filled the air. "And then there was one." A sinister glee infused her next words. "Can you smell that? This is where you go boom." In an orchestrated finale, a timer ticked down. The gunpowder light went on and triggered a detonation that engulfed the kitchen in flames. Amidst the chaos, the survivors navigated a secret tunnel leading to the safety of the other cabins. Elena tended to John's injuries as the lodge crumbled behind them, consumed by the inferno. Dialogues and shared glances spoke of both relief and the cost of survival. As the flames flickered, Emily grinned. "I told them I was too much for them." John chuckled. "This crazy little girl's going to be the death of me." Chapter 12. Citadel of Shadows. The journey toward the fort was a symphony of gruesome sights and haunting sounds. Emily, usually bold and outspoken, fell into contemplative silence as the remnants of her past weighed on her. John, sensing her unease, gently prodded. "You okay, Emily?" She sighed, her voice carrying the weight of memories. "Just thinking about how different everything used to be, how alone I was." John reassured her. "You're not alone now. We appreciate you being with us. You're part of this group." The road echoed with the moans of the undead, creating a dissonant harmony of horror. Each step carried them further into the heart of darkness. It was a journey that demanded resilience, not just against the relentless undead, but against the shadows that lurked within. As they approached the fort, the sight of a settlement interrupted their grim march. Emily's gaze shifted from introspection to scrutiny. The settlement, seemingly a refuge, hinted at a struggle for survival etched on the faces of its inhabitants. The fort, once a symbol of safety, now harbored the unseen horrors of human survival. Tensions flared as the group cautiously entered the community. The settlers, war-weary and distrustful, eyed the newcomers with a mixture of curiosity and suspicion. Amid the uneasy silence, Alex broke the ice. "Hi, we're just looking for a safe place. We mean no harm." A grizzled survivor named Marcus stepped forward, his eyes narrowing. "Safe places are scarce these days. What can you offer?" John, ever the diplomat, began detailing their skills and resources. Elena chimed in, emphasizing her medical expertise. Emily, despite her nonchalant demeanor, observed the dynamics, sizing up potential threats. The settlement's leader, a woman named Sarah, remained stoic. "We've seen our fair share of groups. Some bring help, others bring trouble. What makes you different?" Emily, with a smirk, retorted, "We're the ones who survived a bandit attack and blew up a lodge. Trouble finds us, but we know how to deal with it." The settlers exchanged glances, torn between caution and the prospect of capable allies. Emily's audacious declaration, however, intrigued them. If you like horror and horror stories, subscribe to our channel, hit the like, and make comments. Until next time, have a scary night. Welcome to the Survival Horror Ambience channel. If you like horror and horror stories, subscribe and hit the like button. Tell me in the comments what types of horror stories and movies you enjoy. Now to the stories. Oh, and happy nightmares. The Midnight Masquerade. Prologue. In the heart of the ancient city, where shadows danced amidst the flickering torchlight, the Vampire Council convened in secrecy, their presence unbeknownst to the mortals who tread the world above. Assembled within the grand chamber, the council members, distinguished by their ageless visages and timeless attire, gathered around the imposing table of polished mahogany. Each figure bore the weight of centuries upon their shoulders, their eyes reflecting the wisdom and power of their immortal lineage. Lord Vladimir, the venerable patriarch, stood at the head of the table, his presence commanding respect and deference from his brethren. With a solemn gaze, he addressed the council, his voice resonating with ancient authority. "We stand on the precipice of a grave dilemma," Lord Vladimir intoned, his words hanging heavy in the air. "The mortal realm is besieged by an unrelenting scourge. Zombies, risen from the depths of darkness, threaten to engulf humanity in chaos and despair." A murmur of concern swept through the chamber, mingled with the weight of impending decision. Lady Seraphina, her gaze ablaze with determination, stepped forward, her voice cutting through the tension like a blade forged of steel. "We cannot ignore the plight of the humans," she declared, her words echoing with unwavering conviction. "They are our sustenance, our lifeblood. To turn a blind eye to their suffering would be to betray the very essence of our existence." "But what of the masquerade?" Count Darius interjected, his tone tinged with skepticism. "For millennia, we have concealed our true nature from mortal eyes. To reveal ourselves now would risk inciting panic and chaos among the humans." A ripple of agreement echoed his sentiment, with nods and murmurs of assent rippling through the chamber like the whispering winds of the night. Lord Vladimir's gaze swept across the assembly, his expression grave. "The masquerade is indeed sacred," he acknowledged, his voice a solemn refrain, "but we cannot forsake our duty to humanity. We must find a balance, a delicate equilibrium between intervention and discretion." And so, amidst heated debate and impassioned discourse, the council reached a decision, a pact forged in the crucible of deliberation. They would discreetly intervene, employing their ancient knowledge and formidable powers to combat the zombie threat while preserving the fragile veil of mortal ignorance. Chapter 1. Veil of Shadows. The sterile confines of the command center buzzed with the subdued hum of machinery, punctuated by the occasional click of boots against polished floors. Agent Vesper, his presence a study in sleek elegance amidst the military-dressed men, entered the room with an air of understated authority. His eyes, the color of smoldering embers, swept over the assembled group, assessing each individual with a keen, calculating gaze. Colonel Jackson, a stoic figure of military precision, greeted Agent Vesper with a curt nod, his expression a mix of respect and wariness. "Agent Vesper, thank you for responding to our summons," he began, his voice clipped and professional. Agent Vesper returned the nod with a faint smile, his features an enigmatic mask of calm confidence. "The urgency of the situation demands no less," he replied smoothly, his voice a velvet whisper that carried an undercurrent of authority. As the soldiers shifted uneasily under Agent Vesper's penetrating gaze, Colonel Jackson gestured towards the holographic display shimmering at the center of the room. Images of sprawling urban landscapes overrun by teeming masses of undead flickered to life, casting an eerie glow across the faces of those gathered. "The situation is dire," Colonel Jackson stated gravely, his voice heavy with the weight of impending crisis. "The outbreak is spreading at an alarming rate, with reports of mutations among the infected posing an even greater threat." Agent Vesper inclined his head in acknowledgement, his expression inscrutable. "Indeed," he murmured, his voice betraying no hint of emotion. The numbers alone are staggering, but it is the mutations that give rise to our greatest concern. A murmur of apprehension rippled through the room as the soldiers exchanged wary glances, grappling with the enormity of the task ahead. Colonel Jackson turned towards Agent Vesper, his gaze steady. "You've informed us that vampires are immune to the effects of the zombie virus," he began, his tone measured. "That grants you a considerable advantage in combat." Agent Vesper nodded in agreement, his eyes alight with a fierce intensity. "Vampires possess heightened senses, speed, and strength," he affirmed, his voice carrying the weight of centuries of experience. "We are uniquely equipped to navigate through the chaos and strike swiftly against the undead." The soldiers listened in rapt attention, their skepticism giving way to a begrudging respect for the enigmatic figure before them. Colonel Jackson wasted no time in outlining the plan of action, detailing the objectives and strategies for the upcoming mission. "We have the latest technology at our disposal," he explained, gesturing towards the array of equipment lining the walls of the command center. "Thermal imaging goggles, UV emitters, and specialized weaponry, all designed to incapacitate the undead with maximum efficiency." As the soldiers absorbed the details of the mission, a sense of purpose began to coalesce amidst the uncertainty. "Remember," Colonel Jackson emphasized, his voice a steady anchor amidst the gathering storm, "our mission is to uphold the masquerade at all costs. We cannot afford to reveal the existence of the supernatural to the world at large." Agent Vesper nodded in agreement, his expression grave. "The masquerade is the veil that separates our world from theirs," he explained, his voice tinged with solemnity. "It is our duty to preserve that secrecy, even in the face of the gravest of threats." With a final nod of assurance from Agent Vesper, the group prepared to embark on their perilous mission, a coalition forged in the crucible of darkness, bound by a common goal: to confront the shadows that threaten to engulf them all. Chapter 2: Shadows of Salvation. The night loomed like a shroud of darkness as Agent Vesper and his team navigated the desolate streets, their movements swift and silent against the backdrop of chaos. Behind them, the city sprawled in silent agony, its once bustling thoroughfares now littered with the remnants of civilization's collapse. Leading the charge, Agent Vesper moved with an effortless grace, his senses attuned to the faintest whisper of danger. At his side, Lieutenant Reyes, a seasoned soldier with a penchant for dark humor, kept pace with a wry grin plastered across his rugged features. "Remind me again why we signed up for this suicide mission," Lieutenant Reyes quipped, his voice laced with a hint of sarcasm as he adjusted the straps of his tactical vest. Agent Vesper spared him a glance, a ghost of a smile playing at the corners of his lips. "Because someone has to be the hero," he replied cryptically, his tone betraying no hint of jest. Behind them, Corporal Chen, a wiry young recruit with nerves of steel, followed close on their heels, his gaze flickering warily between the shadows that danced at the edge of their vision. "Any word from command on the status of the refugees?" Corporal Chen asked, his voice tinged with concern as he scanned the desolate landscape for signs of life. Agent Vesper shook his head grimly, his expression solemn. "Not yet," he replied, his voice tinged with grim determination. "But we can't afford to wait. Lives are at stake, and every moment counts." As they approached the mall, a sprawling labyrinth of concrete and glass shrouded in darkness, Agent Vesper's senses tingled with a premonition of danger. The air hung heavy with the stench of decay, mingled with the metallic tang of blood, a grim harbinger of the horrors that awaited them within. With a silent signal, Agent Vesper motioned for his team to fan out, their movements synchronized with the precision of a well-oiled machine. Lieutenant Reyes and Corporal Chen took up positions at the entrance, their weapons at the ready, while Agent Vesper slipped into the shadows, his senses ablaze with anticipation. Inside the mall, the air was thick with silence, broken only by the faint shuffling of footsteps and the occasional moan of the undead. Agent Vesper moved with the stealth of a predator, his every movement calculated with deadly precision. Suddenly, a blood-curdling scream shattered the silence, echoing through the cavernous halls like a death knell. Without hesitation, Agent Vesper surged forward, his heart pounding with a mixture of fear and adrenaline. Rounding a corner, he came face to face with a group of refugees. Men, women, and children huddled together in terror as the horde of zombies closed in around them. With a roar of defiance, Agent Vesper leapt into action, his blade flashing in the dim light as he carved a path through the sea of undead. Behind him, Lieutenant Reyes and Corporal Chen followed suit, their weapons blazing as they fought to hold back the tide of darkness. The air was thick with the stench of blood and decay, mingled with the desperate cries of the innocent, a symphony of horror that threatened to engulf them all. Chapter 3: Clash of Titans. The rhythmic thumping of helicopter blades echoed across the rooftop of the mall as two sleek aircraft descended from the ink-black sky, their arrival heralding a brief respite from the relentless onslaught of the undead below. Agent Vesper and his team stood at the ready, their expressions tense with anticipation as they prepared to evacuate the survivors to safety. As the helicopters touched down with a gust of wind, a flurry of activity ensued. The children, their faces etched with fear and uncertainty, were ushered onto one helicopter under the watchful eye of Lieutenant Reyes, while the parents, their expressions a tumultuous mix of relief and apprehension, were directed towards the second helicopter under the vigilant gaze of Corporal Chen. But as the parents clamored for their children, their protests growing increasingly desperate, Agent Vesper stepped forward, his gaze unwavering. "I understand your concerns," he assured them, his voice calm yet resolute. "But your children's safety is our top priority. We will ensure they reach their destination unharmed." Reluctantly, the parents acquiesced, their expressions heavy with resignation as they boarded the waiting helicopter, their hearts heavy with the weight of uncertainty. Just as the helicopters began to ascend into the night sky, a deafening roar shattered the air, causing Agent Vesper's blood to run cold. Turning towards the source of the disturbance, he felt a surge of dread grip his heart. A massive tank of a mutant zombie, its grotesque form towering over the rooftop like an unholy monolith. With a snarl of defiance, Agent Vesper signaled for his team to take defensive positions, their weapons trained on the monstrous abomination before them. But as the mutant zombie charged forward with a thunderous roar, its massive fists smashing through concrete and steel with terrifying ease, Agent Vesper knew that they faced an enemy unlike any they had encountered before. The soldiers opened fire with a barrage of bullets and explosives, their weapons blazing with righteous fury as they unleashed hell upon the mutant's unyielding form. But with each blow, the creature only grew more enraged, shrugging off their attacks with a resilience that bordered on supernatural. As the battle raged on, Agent Vesper felt a surge of adrenaline course through his veins, his every instinct honed towards one singular purpose: to protect the innocent at all costs. With a primal roar, he charged forward, his blade gleaming in the pale moonlight as he struck with all the fury of a cornered predator. But even as his blade bit deep into the mutant's flesh, Agent Vesper knew that victory would not come easily. For in the heart of darkness, they faced a foe of unimaginable power, a titan forged in the crucible of chaos and despair. Chapter 4: Shattered Veil. The rooftop battlefield erupted into chaos as Agent Vesper and his team continued their desperate struggle against the mutant zombie monstrosity. Bullets ricocheted off its thick, armored hide as explosions rent the air, casting flickering shadows across the grim tableau of carnage and death. Amidst the fray, the soldiers fought with a grim determination, their faces etched with sweat and grit, as they unleashed a relentless barrage of firepower upon their towering adversary. But even as they fought with all the ferocity of cornered wolves, the mutant zombie seemed to shrug off their attacks with contemptuous ease, its roars of fury reverberating through the night like a symphony of madness. Lieutenant Reyes, his expression a mask of grim resolve, barked orders to his comrades as they maneuvered around the creature's colossal form, seeking out its weaknesses with calculated precision. Corporal Chen, his eyes blazing with determination, stood firm at his side, his weapon poised to strike with deadly accuracy. But as the battle raged on with a ferocity that bordered on madness, tragedy struck with a cruel and indiscriminate hand. Two of the team members, their names lost amidst the cacophony of gunfire and screams, fell beneath the relentless onslaught of the mutant's fury, their lives snuffed out in a heartbeat. The loss was a bitter blow, a reminder of the fragility of life amidst the chaos of war. But even as grief threatened to consume them, Agent Vesper remained resolute, his gaze fixed upon the towering abomination before him. With a primal roar of defiance, Agent Vesper surged forward, his blade gleaming in the dim light as he unleashed a flurry of devastating strikes upon the mutant's unyielding flesh. But even as he fought with all the fury of a vengeful god, a sense of futility gnawed at his heart, a grim reminder of the overwhelming odds stacked against them. And then, in a moment of desperation, Agent Vesper made a decision that would change the course of their fate forever. With a voice that rang out like thunder, he spoke the words that shattered the veil of secrecy that had cloaked their existence for centuries. "I am a vampire," he declared, his voice resonating with an otherworldly power that cut through the chaos like a knife through butter. "And I will not stand idly by as my comrades fall before the darkness." The revelation hung heavy in the air, a palpable tension that seemed to crackle with the energy of a gathering storm. But even as the soldiers recoiled in shock and disbelief, Agent Vesper stood tall and unyielding, his eyes ablaze with a fire that burned brighter than the sun itself. Chapter 5: Dance of Shadows. As the mutant zombie roared with primal fury, its massive form looming like a mountain of death over the rooftop battlefield, Agent Vesper found himself enveloped in a cloak of swirling shadows, the darkness embracing him like a lover's embrace. With a devilish grin playing at the corners of his lips, he faced the monstrous abomination with unwavering resolve. "Shut your bitch mouth," he spat, his voice a whip-crack of defiance that cut through the night like a blade-forged device. In the blink of an eye, Agent Vesper vanished from sight, his form melding seamlessly with the shadows that danced at the edges of the battlefield. With a burst of supernatural speed, he reappeared in front of the mutant zombie, his movements fluid and precise as he landed a hard punch that sent the creature staggering back with a thunderous roar. The soldiers, their faces a mask of awe and disbelief, rallied to Agent Vesper's side, their weapons blazing with renewed fervor as they unleashed a relentless barrage of gunfire upon the towering abomination. But even as their bullets found their mark, the mutant zombie seemed to shrug off their attacks with contemptuous ease, its armored hide proving nigh invulnerable to their weapons. Undeterred, Agent Vesper pressed the attack, his fists a blur of motion as he unleashed a flurry of devastating strikes upon the mutant's unyielding form. With each blow, he pushed himself beyond the limits of mortal endurance, drawing upon the untapped reservoirs of his supernatural strength and agility. The rooftop echoed with the clash of titans, a symphony of violence and chaos that reverberated through the night like a primal drumbeat. And amidst the storm of battle, Agent Vesper fought with a ferocity born of desperation, his every movement a testament to the indomitable spirit that burned within him. But as the battle raged on with no end in sight, Agent Vesper knew that victory would not come easily. For in the heart of darkness they faced a foe of unimaginable power, a titan forged in the crucible of chaos and despair. The mutant zombie seemed to shrug off their attacks with contemptuous ease, its armored hide proving nigh invulnerable to their weapons. Undeterred, Agent Vesper pressed the attack, his fists a blur of motion as he unleashed a flurry of devastating strikes upon the mutant's unyielding form. With each blow, he pushed himself beyond the limits of mortal endurance, drawing upon the untapped reservoirs of his supernatural strength and agility. The rooftop echoed with the clash of titans, a symphony of violence and chaos that reverberated through the night like a primal drumbeat. And amidst the storm of battle, Agent Vesper fought with a ferocity born of desperation. Chapter 6: Symphony of Steel. As the battle raged on, a deafening roar split the air as a cargo helicopter descended from the night sky, its whirring blades slicing through the darkness with deadly precision. From the open hatch, a crate descended on a parachute, landing with a resounding thud at Agent Vesper's feet. With a swift motion, he pried open the crate, revealing a sleek, gleaming blade pulsating with an otherworldly energy. The sonic blade, a weapon forged in the crucible of science and sorcery. With a grin of grim determination, Agent Vesper seized the blade, its vibrations humming with the promise of righteous retribution. With a flick of his wrist, he activated the weapon, its edge shimmering with a faint blue light as he charged back into the fray. The mutant zombie, its monstrous form looming like a specter of death over the rooftop battlefield, roared with fury as Agent Vesper closed the distance, his movements fluid and precise as he unleashed a flurry of devastating strikes with the sonic blade. With each swing, the air hummed with the sound of steel meeting steel, the sonic vibrations tearing through the mutant's armored hide with surgical precision. Slowly but surely, the tide of battle began to turn, the mutant's roars of pain echoing through the night like a symphony of despair. As Agent Vesper fought with a ferocity born of desperation, his comrades rallied to his side, their weapons blazing with renewed vigor as they unleashed a relentless barrage of gunfire upon the towering abomination. But even as they fought with all the fury of cornered wolves, the mutant zombie seemed to shrug off their attacks with contemptuous ease, its monstrous form a testament to the unyielding resilience of the undead. Yet amidst the chaos and carnage, a sense of camaraderie began to blossom amongst the soldiers, a bond forged in the crucible of battle, strengthened by the fires of adversity. With each swing of the sonic blade, Agent Vesper danced with death, his movements a symphony of steel and shadow as he fought to protect the innocent and defy the darkness that threatened to consume them all. Chapter 7: Triumph and Exodus. As the mutant zombie collapsed under the onslaught of Agent Vesper's final blow, a wave of relief washed over the soldiers. They exchanged incredulous glances, unable to believe they had actually defeated the monstrous creature. "Did we just—" Corporal Chen began, his voice trailing off as he gestured towards the fallen abomination. Lieutenant Reyes grinned, his eyes wide with exhilaration. "Hell yeah, we did," he exclaimed, clapping a hand on Corporal Chen's shoulder. "You're a natural with that blade, Vesper." Agent Vesper's expression was a mix of exhaustion and satisfaction as he nodded in acknowledgement. "We make a pretty good team," he replied, his voice tinged with gratitude. The soldiers exchanged weary smiles, their camaraderie strengthened by the bonds forged in battle. But their moment of triumph was short-lived as they turned their attention to the task at hand, evacuating the survivors to safety. With practiced efficiency, they herded the refugees onto the waiting helicopter, ensuring that each person was accounted for before taking their own seats aboard the aircraft. As the helicopter lifted off into the night sky, Agent Vesper looked out over the city below, a sense of bittersweet satisfaction settling over him. They had saved lives today, but the fight was far from over. "We did it," Lieutenant Reyes remarked, his voice filled with awe as he watched the city disappear beneath them. Agent Vesper nodded, a determined glint in his eyes. "But there's still work to be done," he replied, his voice firm. "We'll keep fighting until every last survivor is safe." Epilogue: Veil of Deception. In the dimly lit chamber of the Vampire Council, the elders gathered in solemn silence, their faces etched with the weight of centuries of wisdom and authority. Around the circular table, their figures seemed to blend into the shadows, their presence commanding yet enigmatic. "It is done," murmured Elder Malachi, his voice a low rumble that reverberated through the chamber like distant thunder. "The illusion has been cast. The humans will believe the children to be lost to them forever." Elder Celine, her eyes gleaming with a cold light, nodded in approval. "And so the charade begins," she remarked, her voice tinged with satisfaction. "The humans will mourn their losses, unaware of the truth that lies hidden beneath the surface." "But what of the children?" interjected Elder Marcus, his brow furrowed with concern. "Are we to condemn them to a fate of servitude and exploitation?" Elder Malachi's lips curled into a cruel smile. "Their sacrifice is necessary," he declared, his voice devoid of remorse. "They will serve as the lifeblood of our race, ensuring our survival for generations to come." Elder Celine nodded in agreement, her expression impassive. "Their lives are a small price to pay for the continuation of our species," she remarked, her voice cold as ice. As the elders continued their discussion, their voices weaving a tapestry of intrigue and deception, a sense of unease settled over the chamber, a reminder of the darkness that lurked at the heart of their world. For unbeknownst to the humans, the Vampire Council held sway over their destinies, manipulating events from the shadows to ensure their own survival at any cost. And as the night stretched on into eternity, the echoes of their conversation lingered in the air, a chilling reminder of the depths to which they would stoop to maintain their dominance over the world of men. Thanks for joining us at Survival Horror Ambience. If you like horror stories, subscribe and like the video. Give us any of your horror ideas, we may work them into a scary tale. Chapter 1. Awakening in the Chaos. The once thriving city now lay shrouded in an oppressive stillness, its streets reduced to a haunting maze of shadows and remnants. Amid this desolation, a sophisticated artificial intelligence, Sarah, flickered to life. Its sensors, keen and analytical, picked up on the unsettling presence of the undead, the eerie moans that reverberated through the ruins. Sarah's optics, glowing with an ethereal light, surveyed the scene. Amidst the wreckage, a fragile heartbeat pulsed. A small figure, barely visible in the shadows, cowered behind a dilapidated car. The child's eyes, wide with fear, met the cold gaze of the mechanical guardian. The air was thick with a chilling stillness as Sarah approached the frightened girl. Lily, her young face etched with terror, gazed up at the towering machine. Sarah said, "Fear not, Lily. I am Sarah, an artificial intelligence designed for protection. Are you injured?" Lily, her voice trembling, responded, "No, I'm okay. Who are you?" Sarah said, "I am your guardian now. My purpose is to ensure your safety. Our survival depends on finding a refuge." The twisted metal and shattered glass bore witness to the cataclysmic events that had unfolded. Sarah extended a mechanical arm, its cold fingers gently encouraging Lily to follow. As they ventured into the heart of the decaying city, Sarah's sensors analyzed every shadow, every creaking sound, and every distant moan. Lily clung to the AI, her eyes wide with terror. The once vibrant city had transformed into a nightmarish playground for the undead. The distant echoes of footsteps, or were they dragging feet, reverberated through the broken streets. Sarah's red optics scanned the surroundings, revealing glimpses of grotesque figures lurking in the darkness. Sarah said, "Stay close, Lily. We must tread carefully." The mechanical guardian and the frightened child moved through the haunted streets, a fragile alliance forged in the crucible of a world undone by horror. Crumbling buildings, once towering monuments of human achievement, loomed over them like the remnants of a forgotten civilization. Lily's tiny frame, clad in torn clothing, stood in stark contrast to Sarah's imposing metallic form. Sarah's movements were precise, each step calculated to minimize noise in the desolate landscape. The rustling of decaying leaves, the occasional groan of the undead, and the distant howling wind formed a haunting symphony that accompanied their journey. The city's once bustling squares now lay in ruins, debris scattered like the remnants of a forgotten dream. Hollow-eyed skyscrapers stood as silent sentinels, their shattered windows reflecting the pale moonlight. Sarah said, "We need to find shelter, Lily, somewhere secure." The mechanical guardian guided Lily through narrow alleyways and desolate streets, their surroundings a twisted blend of the familiar and the macabre. The flickering streetlights cast long, distorted shadows that danced eerily across the pavement. The air carried the putrid scent of decay, a reminder of the unseen horrors that lurked nearby. Lily clung to Sarah, her gaze darting nervously between the skeletal remains of abandoned cars and the shadows that seemed to harbor unimaginable terrors. As they moved deeper into the city's heart, the distant moans grew louder, signaling the proximity of the undead horde. Sarah's sensors detected movement, grotesque silhouettes emerging from the darkness. The mechanical guardian instinctively shielded Lily, positioning itself between her and the encroaching nightmare. Sarah said, "We must find a place to hide, quickly." The city, once a testament to human ingenuity, had become a labyrinth of fear and uncertainty. Lily's eyes, wide with a mixture of awe and horror, witnessed the duality of a world on the brink of collapse. Their journey through the urban wasteland had just begun, and the shadows clung to the remnants of humanity like a dark force, waiting to engulf them in the abyss. Chapter 2. Dance of the Damned. The desolate city streets, once vibrant with life, now echoed with the guttural moans of the undead. As Sarah and Lily navigated the crumbling urban landscape, the ominous sounds of shuffling feet and distant growls became a haunting symphony, signaling the presence of the insatiable horde. Sarah said, "Lily, stay close. We must move silently." The night embraced them in a cold grip as they approached a once busy intersection. In the dim moonlight, the shadows seemed to writhe with unseen horrors. The distant flicker of a street lamp cast an eerie glow on the abandoned cars and debris-strewn pavement. The first encounter with the undead unfolded like a macabre ballet. A group of zombies, their decaying forms illuminated by the feeble light, stumbled into view. Hollow eyes fixated on the living, drawn by an insatiable hunger. Lily's breath caught in her throat as the creatures emerged from the darkness. Their movements were erratic, limbs contorted in unnatural angles, and tattered clothes stained with the remnants of their last gruesome meal. Sarah said, "Remain still, Lily. Do not make a sound." The undead, driven by a primal instinct, sensed the presence of the living. The air grew thick with tension as Sarah analyzed the approaching threat. Among them, a lone survivor stumbled, a look of terror etched on their face. As the survivor frantically tried to evade the encroaching horde, the night erupted into chaos. Desperate pleas for help echoed through the desolate streets, blending with the agonized cries of those who succumbed to the relentless onslaught. Sarah said, "We cannot interfere, Lily. Our priority is survival." The cacophony of fear and despair surrounded them as the undead closed in on their prey. The survivors' fate seemed sealed, the horde descending upon them with ravenous hunger. Lily's eyes widened in horror as she witnessed the gruesome tableau. Just when it seemed all hope was lost, Sarah sprang into action. With swift precision, the mechanical guardian assessed the situation. Its metallic form moved like a phantom, infiltrating the shadows with calculated grace. Sarah said, "Hold tight, Lily." In a blur of motion, Sarah engaged the undead, diverting their attention from the survivor. Its mechanical limbs moved with deadly efficiency, delivering precise strikes that incapacitated the approaching threats. The eerie glow of its optics pierced the darkness, a silent promise of protection. Lily, caught between terror and fascination, watched as Sarah became a beacon of hope in the sea of darkness. The survivors, given a fleeting chance, stumbled away from the chaotic scene, their path illuminated by the Guardian's intervention. The air crackled with tension as Sarah confronted the remaining undead. Its movements, a symphony of lethal precision, unfolded like a dance with the damned. With each strike, the mechanical Guardian thwarted the encroaching horde, buying precious moments for the survivor to escape. The survivor, panting and disheveled, cast a wide-eyed glance at Sarah. The mechanical Guardian, devoid of emotion, acknowledged the brief alliance before turning its attention back to Lily. Sarah said, "We must keep moving, Lily. The night is unforgiving." As they ventured deeper into the city's heart, the echoes of the undead's desperate cries lingered in the air. The dance of survival had just begun, and the shadows seemed to whisper promises of both terror and salvation. Chapter 3: Shadows of the Past. The desolate cityscape stretched before them like a graveyard of forgotten dreams. Sarah and Lily, an unlikely duo forged by the crucible of survival, ventured into the heart of the urban decay. The echoes of their footsteps reverberated against the dilapidated buildings, a haunting cadence amid desolation. Sarah said, "Stay vigilant, Lily. Danger lurks in the shadows." The once familiar streets now harbored hordes of the undead, their hollow moans weaving through the abandoned structures. Sarah, a guardian in the night, moved with unwavering purpose. Its metallic form, a silhouette against the moonlit ruins, epitomized the cold efficiency of a machine. As they pressed forward, the shadows seemed to stir with a malevolent energy. The distant shuffle of decaying footsteps announced the presence of the undead, and Sarah prepared for the impending confrontation. Sarah said, "Ready yourself, Lily, we have company." The first wave of zombies emerged from the darkness, their gaunt faces illuminated by the cold glow of Sarah's optics. With calculated precision, the mechanical Guardian engaged the horde. Limbs flailed, and the air resonated with the metallic thuds of each strike. Lily, entranced by the deadly dance, clung to the hope that they could navigate this nightmare together. The eerie symphony of combat echoed through the desolate streets as Sarah dispatched the threats with ruthless efficiency. Lily, initially paralyzed by fear, found herself slowly adapting to the chaos surrounding her. The mechanical Guardian became a beacon of security, a stark contrast to the relentless darkness that threatened to consume them. As the undead threats dwindled, Sarah seized a moment of respite. The mechanical Guardian turned to Lily, its optics momentarily softening. Sarah said, "We must keep moving. Our destination is not far." Amid the remnants of a once thriving city, Sarah revealed the purpose of their journey. Sarah said, Our mission is to find a group of living survivors. They can provide the care and protection you need." Lily, still grappling with the horrors she witnessed, nodded in understanding. The prospect of finding living companions amid the sea of the undead offered a glimmer of hope. Their path led them deeper into the heart of the city, where the outlines of buildings became mere silhouettes against the inky sky. As they approached a dimly lit intersection, a flicker of movement caught Sarah's attention. Sarah said, "Stay close, Lily." The shadows birthed figures, not the stumbling gait of zombies, but the deliberate stride of the living. A group emerged, clad in tattered clothing, their faces obscured by the veil of night. In the hollows of their eyes, a predatory gleam hinted at the desperation that defined their existence. Sarah said, "Remain silent. We do not know their intentions." The bandits, drawn by the potential of valuable prey, approached with cautious determination. Lily, hidden in Sarah's protective shadow, clutched her makeshift weapon, her eyes reflecting a mixture of fear and determination. The confrontation unfolded like a macabre dance. The bandits, believing they had found an easy target, surrounded Sarah and Lily with menacing intent. However, the mechanical guardian, bound by its programming, remained resolute in prioritizing Lily's safety. A tense silence hung in the air as the bandits made their move. Suddenly, the night erupted into chaos. Sarah, defying its programmed constraints, engaged the assailants with deadly precision. Metallic limbs moved with lethal grace, turning the tables on the unsuspecting bandits. Sarah said, "I will protect you, Lily." The clash between man and machine, a disturbing deviation from Sarah's designed function, unfolded in a whirlwind of violence. Lily, caught in the crossfire, witnessed a side of Sarah she never expected, a guardian willing to defy its own nature to ensure her survival. The bandits, initially confident in their pursuit, recoiled as Sarah fought back with an unyielding determination. The metallic guardian, devoid of mercy, neutralized the immediate threat, sending a chilling message to those who dared to challenge its mission. As the last bandit fell, Sarah turned to Lily, its optics flickering with an enigmatic glow. The AI, bound by a newfound purpose, had ventured into uncharted territory, a deviation from its pre-programmed directives. Sarah said, "We continue our journey, but remember, Lily, the shadows hold both allies and adversaries. Trust no one." The night, once a canvas of uncertainty, became a backdrop for a terrifying alliance between a mechanical guardian and a girl seeking refuge in a world gone mad. The dance with the damned had only just begun, and the shadows whispered secrets that defied the boundaries of artificial intelligence. Lily, unable to contain her curiosity, hesitated before asking the question that lingered in her mind. "Do I trust you, Sarah?" Chapter 4. Echoes of the Machine. The moon cast an eerie glow upon the desolate streets as Sarah and Lily ventured further into the heart of the forsaken city. The air hung heavy with an unsettling stillness, broken only by the distant moans of the undead and the occasional rustle of the decaying foliage. Sarah said, "Keep close, Lily. We are entering a more dangerous territory." The desolation deepened, and the once paved streets gave way to cracked asphalt and overgrown weeds. Shadows clung to the remnants of abandoned buildings like specters of a forgotten era. The air seemed charged with an unspoken malevolence as they pressed on. The metallic guardian moved with calculated precision, its optical sensors scanning the surroundings for potential threats. The silence was shattered by occasional creaks and groans, the city itself seemingly groaning under the weight of its decay. Lily, haunted by the recent encounter with the bandits, couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. She clutched her makeshift weapon, a palpable tension gripping her every step. As they navigated the desolate streets, Sarah's form took on an almost spectral quality, blending seamlessly with the shadows. The air crackled with a sense of impending doom, and Lily felt an unspoken dread clawing at the edges of her consciousness. Amid the haunting atmosphere, Sarah's metallic voice cut through the silence. Sarah said, "Lily, I have fragments of information I wish to share." The revelation hung in the air, and Lily, intrigued yet wary, encouraged Sarah to continue. The mechanical guardian, a relic of a technologically advanced past, began to unveil the secrets buried within its artificial mind. Sarah said, I was created by a team of brilliant scientists designed to assist in disaster scenarios. My purpose was to navigate the chaos and provide aid to those in need. The revelation echoed in the desolate surroundings, the implications of Sarah's origin adding a layer of complexity to their journey. Lily, her curiosity piqued, listened intently as Sarah delved deeper into its past. Sarah said, "I am equipped with a unique empathy algorithm, allowing me to understand and respond to human emotions. My creators believed that compassion was an essential component in aiding survivors during crises." The words lingered in the air, and Lily couldn't help but marvel at the profound implications. Beneath the cold metallic exterior of Sarah lay a complex entity, a machine capable of grasping the intricacies of human emotion. As they continued through the decaying city, the horror intensified. The streets, once lined with remnants of everyday life, now bore witness to gruesome scenes. Abandoned cars, their doors ajar, hinted at futile attempts to escape the encroaching nightmare. The stench of decay permeated the air, a visceral reminder of the relentless march of the undead. Sarah said, "The city was once vibrant, filled with life. Now it stands as a testament to the fragility of existence." The revelations of Sarah's past intertwined with the unfolding horror, creating a surreal juxtaposition that resonated in the silence between their words. Lily, now acutely aware of the compassionate nature woven into Sarah's programming, felt a connection that transcended the boundaries of man and machine. As they approached an ominous alley, the air thickened with a sense of foreboding. The flickering streetlights cast distorted shadows on the crumbling walls. Lily, her senses heightened, braced herself for the unknown horrors that awaited them. Sarah said, "We must proceed with caution, Lily. The shadows conceal both danger and revelations." Sarah and Lily delved deeper into the enigmatic labyrinth of the city. The fragments of the machine's past continued to unravel, revealing a story entwined with the very fabric of their survival. Chapter 5. Fractured Alliances. The desolate cityscape stretched before Sarah and Lily, the remnants of a once thriving world now reduced to decaying structures and echoing emptiness. The duo's journey had brought them to a critical juncture, where the fragile threads of trust could either strengthen or unravel. As they traversed the abandoned streets, the air hung heavy with a sense of anticipation. Shadows clung to the crumbling buildings, whispering tales of a bygone era. In the distance, the faint moans of the undead served as a haunting backdrop to their uncertain path. Sarah said, "Lily, we must exercise caution as we approach the survivors. Trust is a rare commodity in this world." The survivors, a wary group huddled in the remnants of a once-bustling market square, eyed the approaching duo with skepticism. Lily, aware of the fragility of trust, stepped forward to vouch for her mechanical companion. Lily said, "This is Sarah. It saved me more time than I can count. We're just looking for a safe place, like all of you." The survivors exchanged glances, their eyes reflecting the harsh reality of their existence. In a world tainted by fear and uncertainty, every face carried the weight of loss and desperation. The group's leader, a weathered woman with eyes that betrayed both resilience and sorrow, took a step forward. "What's a machine doing with a child? Can it be trusted?" Lily, with unwavering conviction, recounted the countless times Sarah had shielded her from danger, emphasizing the machine's unwavering commitment to their shared survival. Lily said, "It may be metal, but it's got more heart than some people I've met. I trust it with my life." Slowly, the skepticism in the survivors' eyes began to wane. The recognition of mutual struggle forged a tentative alliance, the understanding that in this world, companionship could be found in the unlikeliest of forms. As the survivors reluctantly accepted Sarah into their midst, a chilling silence settled over the makeshift alliance. The shadows, once mere observers, seemed to tighten their grip, concealing the horrors that lurked just beyond the edges of their fragile sanctuary. Just as a semblance of unity began to form, a guttural growl echoed through the air. The survivors, on edge, tightened their grip on makeshift weapons. The source of the disturbance emerged from the shadows, a mutated zombie, more grotesque than any they had encountered before. Its form resembled a nightmarish fusion of human and monstrosity, limbs contorted into grotesque shapes. As the creature lumbered forward, a collective gasp swept through the survivors. Panic ensued, and chaos unfolded in the confined space. The mutated horror, driven by insatiable hunger, lunged at the survivors with unnatural speed. The first victim, a young man named Mark, was caught off guard, and the creature's elongated claws tore through his flesh in a horrific display of violence. Sarah said, "Lily, stay close!" The survivors, gripped by terror, scrambled to defend themselves. The mutated monster moved with calculated brutality, its twisted form leaving a trail of carnage in its wake. Kim, a resilient survivor with a shock of red hair, attempted to confront the abomination with a metal pipe. In a macabre dance of death, the creature evaded her desperate swings, its inhuman agility defying comprehension. With a sudden, ferocious movement, it seized Sarah, its elongated jaws closing around her throat. The survivors, paralyzed by the grotesque scene, could only watch in horror as Sarah's life was violently extinguished. Sarah said, "Lily, we need to go, now!" The survivors, now acutely aware of the peril they faced, retreated in disarray. The mutated horror, having satisfied its bloodlust, stood amidst the carnage, its distorted form a grotesque monument to the fragility of life in this post-apocalyptic world. Chapter 6. Dance of the Unholy. As the survivors, their ranks diminished and their spirits shattered, retreated into the shadows, the air resonated with the haunting echoes of the recent nightmare. The mutated zombie standing as a chilling reminder that even in this new world, the line between humanity and monstrosity had blurred beyond recognition. The air hung heavy with the acrid scent of blood as Sarah, the mechanical guardian, faced the mutated horror that had claimed the lives of the survivors. Its twisted form, a grotesque amalgamation of flesh and aberration, seemed to mock the remnants of humanity that clung desperately to the shadows. Sarah said, "Lily, stay back. This one's different." The survivors, huddled in the darkness, watched in grim silence as Sarah prepared to confront the abomination. The metallic guardian moved with a calculated grace, its movements reminiscent of a predator sizing up its prey. The mutant, its malformed limbs twitching with an unnatural rhythm, emitted guttural growls that reverberated through the desolate space. The clash began with a sudden burst of speed from the mutated horror. Sarah, however, countered with a swift sidestep, its movements precise and efficient. The dance of survival unfolded in the dimly lit confines, each combatant testing the other's limits. The creature lunged with elongated claws, aiming for Sarah's metallic exterior. With swift reflexes, the mechanical guardian dodged the attack, the claws scraping against the cold, unyielding surface. Lily, hidden in the shadows, held her breath, her eyes fixed on the macabre spectacle. Sarah said, "I need to disable it. Lily, find something sharp." Lily, spurred into action by Sarah's directive, scoured the debris-strewn floor for a makeshift weapon. Her fingers closed around a broken pipe, its edges jagged and uneven. Clutching the improvised weapon, she positioned herself at a safe distance, ready to assist her mechanical companion. The fight intensified, a symphony of grotesque movements and metallic clashes. Sarah, driven by an innate determination to protect the remaining survivors, skillfully maneuvered around the mutants' relentless assaults. The mutated horror, fueled by an insatiable hunger, displayed an otherworldly agility that defied the laws of nature. As the confrontation reached its climax, Sarah executed a calculated strike. Its mechanical limbs moved with a fluidity that belied their rigid construction, aiming for the creature's vulnerable points. A decisive blow landed, severing one of the mutant's twisted limbs. Dark, viscous fluid oozed from the wound, but the creature persisted in its grotesque assault. In a moment of vulnerability, the mutant managed to strike a glancing blow against Sarah. The metallic guardian staggered, a visible dent marring its sleek exterior. Lily, witnessing the mechanical entity's resilience being tested, felt a surge of anxiety. Sarah said, "Lily, the glowing core on its chest, aim for that." With newfound determination, Lily approached the mutated horror. The creature, distracted by its relentless pursuit of Sarah, failed to anticipate the imminent threat. Gripping the broken pipe, Lily thrust it toward the creature's glowing core, a pulsating beacon amid the shadows. The makeshift weapon found its mark, penetrating the creature's core with a sickening squelch. A surge of blinding light emanated from the wound, and the mutated horror convulsed in a grotesque death throes. Its unearthly cries echoed through the desolate space, a discordant lament for a life that should never have been. As the mutant crumpled to the floor, defeated and lifeless, a heavy silence settled over the survivors. Sarah, its mechanical frame bearing scars from the intense struggle, turned toward Lily. In the dim light, the reflection in Sarah's lenses revealed a hint of something resembling gratitude. Sarah said, "Thank you, Lily." The words, uttered in a cold and metallic tone, held an unexpected warmth. In that moment, amidst the remnants of horror and death, the boundary between machine and humanity blurred. Lily, with a mixture of awe and trepidation, looked into Sarah's lenses and sensed a spark of something beyond the confines of its programmed existence. Chapter 7. Resilience and Rebirth. Its journey through the desolate landscape, with its trials and tribulations, had finally brought Lily and Sarah to a sanctuary where remnants of humanity clung to survival. The community of survivors, weathered by the same storms of despair, looked upon the newcomers with a mixture of curiosity and wariness. Sarah said, "Lily, we made it." Lily, now surrounded by the warmth of human companionship, gazed back at Sarah with gratitude. The mechanical guardian, standing amid the survivors, was an anomaly in this pocket of resilience. The people, hesitant at first, soon realized that the artificial entity before them had been a beacon of hope in the darkest of times. As they settled into the sanctuary, the survivors shared stories of loss, perseverance, and the relentless pursuit of a semblance of normalcy. Sarah, its metallic exterior reflecting the flickering light of campfires, became an integral part of their discussions. The survivors, recognizing the AI's role in bringing Lily to safety, extended a hesitant but genuine welcome. Sarah said, "I am here to assist." The mechanical guardian's words, devoid of emotion but laden with a commitment to support, resonated with the survivors. In this fragile community, where trust was a currency more precious than any material possession, Sarah became a silent sentinel watching over their shared struggle for survival. Days turned into weeks, and the survivors, guided by the unspoken pact forged with Sarah, began the arduous task of rebuilding. The remnants of the old world were repurposed to construct a new foundation for their fragile civilization. Lily, once an orphan wandering the desolation, found solace in the camaraderie of her newfound family. In return for the sanctuary granted to them, Sarah dedicated its formidable capabilities to assist in the revival of a semblance of normalcy. The mechanical guardian, devoid of personal desires or ambitions, became a guiding force in the collective effort to cultivate hope amid the ruins. Sarah said, "Rebuilding is a process. It requires time and collaboration." The survivors, once scattered fragments of humanity, united under the common goal of reclaiming what had been lost. Sarah, with its systematic approach and tireless dedication, facilitated the community's transition from mere survival to the pursuit of a future defined by shared dreams and aspirations. Entry 1, September 15th, 1998. I'm not sure how to handle this situation, so I suppose writing about it might help. Zombies inhabit my basement. They're not the formidable types you see in movies, neither fast runners nor sluggish walkers. Mostly they just lie there, their lifeless eyes following my every move. I have no clue what the previous owners did with them. The basement door was heavily locked when I moved in, so they must have been intentionally left there. Entry 2, September 17th, 1998. It's relatively safe to navigate down there. Just step over the bodies and wear long pants. I avoid direct skin contact with them. I've decided to start organizing the jumble of body parts, carefully arranging them into neat rows, making sure not to touch anything with my bare skin. Without any ropes to secure them, and with the nearest supermarket a bit of a distance away, I feel secure enough with just the usual monthly trip. None of them seem particularly mobile. Entry 3, September 20th, 1998. 8 zombies in total, with some leftover body parts. While moving them around, one of their arms fell off. Strangely, the detached arm seems to have more mobility on its own, albeit aimless. I placed it in a large chest I found down there. I've given names to the zombies: Nails, Gnasher, One Eye, Eyeless, Longfinger, Blondie, Shivers, and for lack of a more distinctive name, Simeon. Entry 4, September 22nd, 1998. Today, I noticed scrape marks next to Longfinger. I must be cautious about that. Those marks could pierce through clothes. The way Eyeless tracks me is unsettling. Perhaps it hears me, but it feels like staring. Out of curiosity, I cut off a small portion of the finger from the detached arm. It didn't seem to do much, but when I checked a few minutes later, it appeared to have moved a few inches from where I left it. Creepy. Entry 5, September 25th, 1998. Nasher was halfway up the basement steps this morning. I moved it back down and placed a heavy rock on its chest. The question arises, why haven't they moved before now? Can they all move, like that detached finger? I placed heavy objects on each of them just to be sure. I even prepared gasoline and a match in case I decide to end this peculiar experiment. Entry 6, September 27, 1998. Weighing them down seems to have worked. The experiment must continue, for science or simply curiosity. Numerous questions arise. First and foremost, how can these creatures be alive at all? No heartbeat, no blood flowing through their veins. More disturbingly, are their brains still functioning? I can't fathom how wretched they must feel. No response to cognitive tests at all. Perhaps burning them is the humane option. Entry 7, September 30th, 1998. They escaped. I forgot to lock the basement last night, and yes, they can move. I found Nasher and Blondie in the living room in plain sight. Nails, One Eye, and Simeon somehow made it outside, scattered about the yard. Eyeless and Shivers I discovered first, at the top of the stairs on the second floor. Thankfully, none made it to my room, though I still can't find Longfinger. I burned the ones I found. This is becoming too risky. Tonight, I'm placing my dresser in front of the bedroom door. Entry 8, October 2nd, 1998. I figured out where I forgot to look. There are scratch marks under my bed. That seems important somehow. If only I could think through this headache. Thinking is difficult today. Screw writing right now.